I just made myself a warm cacao, which is raw cacao. There's a bit of hemp milk, which has been sweetened. And I thought this is a good time to talk about ADHD, addiction, and overcoming it or living with it. And the reason being is I feel like it's a personality trait. And I'm on a raw lifestyle, and so much of what I have dealt with my whole life has healed, has gone, hey, Tessa, and I feel amazing. But the one thing that comes up, it's almost because it's at my core, is this ADHD and its ability to link into addiction. And I I think I'm getting to a point now where the goal is not to actually fix the ADHD because it's a brilliant tool. It's why I can do four thumbnails a day, see four clients, do three lives, put out a reel, do a recipe, do a couple recipes. But it's about mastering what you have. And I've kind of fed into this a bit when I've spoken about addiction. When I say addiction, first off, with my ADHD, underneath my 60 surgeries and my 7 major organs removed and my 25 years in bed is predominantly when I saw a psychiatrist for pain, to help me with pain, they check in if you have anxiety or depression. And essentially, not really did I have those, but there's this overlaying factor of having ADHD. And to test if I had it, not only did I have to take written tests and he assessed me, but my parents, my mum especially, had to be asked a whole lot of questions. And it was derived after speaking to my mum that literally from when I was born, I had this ADHD. So, mum having two children, one would sit still, would sleep, would eat, would follow instructions, and the other, being me, was never sleep, like literally never slept, was always up. If something went wrong, was screaming with tears. Everything was very dramatic. But also, I think these are all things that when you label someone with ADHD, these all start to become negative connotations in somebody's life, right? They are why I am who I am. Also, I find people with ADHD are very passionate, are so deep, almost deep that it hurts. And that is a protective mechanism they then make around themselves. If I was to say, and I talk so much about love, everything is love. And what if you felt that love so intensely you couldn't sit in a situation for more than 2 seconds? So you jump to the next one and you jump to the next one. I mean, this is fundamentally when it came back on strong after having shingles, the ADHD. I've said this, the first thing I noticed is little piles around my apartment. So if you've seen half of my apartment too, or a third, you've seen my kitchen, is I keep it very simple. Everything is very simple. If it starts to come up, or like clutter, and you could see that in a way of love, is I can't look after everything in the kitchen. It's almost like having a breakdown or a child would scream. I get very I don't even know whether it's probably a form of anxiety, which ADHD is, I was told many times. But there's so many different layers to that. But the first layer is, what if having ADHD, you can find a way to accept that it's part of your personality and it's not that you talk too much, you're disruptive, you never sit still, you don't sleep, you fidget. And then a new illness comes out, and there's a high tendency of people to have ADHD who have had like addiction, and it goes on. And all of a sudden, who you are becomes very problematic. So I think, I'm just checking in. Oh, right. See, Tessa said apparently I cried nonstop as a baby. I I did things throughout my life which were very not common as well for a girl. Like especially like I was always around the guys. I was always playing in boats. I was starting engines. I wanted to know how it works. So that side, people could classify as my ADHD. I wakeboarded. Not many girls wakeboarded. More girls like to sit still. And there's a lot of traits that I love about myself. And this falls back into what I was talking about earlier with addiction. So you've heard about how I had all these surgeries. I was in bed and I was on I was on Oxycontin, I was on stimulant medication, dexamphetamine for ADHD. For pain, I was on an SSRI. Later on, they used both of these just to try and calm, the FND. But essentially, what I want to say is I was addicted to opioids. I smoked, I vaped, I ended up an alcoholic. And people get classified as having these to fix ADHD. These are all symptoms of ADHD. But in truth, it's because the world is so vibrant and I feel it so much that when I was on these things, it filtered for me, right? It's almost like, and I saw someone describe it really well, is if you have ADHD, everything's coming in really fast, you're expelling it really fast, but all of a sudden you're getting really overwhelmed. But also, the reason I am who I am is because of this skill. So I think that's really important. So you put all those poisons in your body. I was near death. Also, I was young. And also those poisons taught me so much about myself. So, when you're young and you're prescribed something, you don't really get a choice. I've been sick since I was 8, not just mental health, but I had a congenital disease. I've had my stomach removed. I've had what else have I had? I had a full hysterectomy, but I had a rare congenital disease. And we grow up in a society where I don't actually think we know what these medications do. We think they're actually going to help. Hello. So you feel great now. I do, only because of the way I eat. And that eating has literally transformed the way I see addiction, the way I have no illness now. But the ADHD, I don't think people should focus on getting rid of because it's actually like a superpower, which I'm learning to master. Now I'm on a raw food diet. So if I get overwhelmed or stressed, other people get overwhelmed and stressed, but an ADHD's response, and especially with addictive tendencies in your past, and especially I lost parts of my memory and now they're back. There's these traits to pick up something that's going to filter for you. If you have a stimulant, which I'm having a bit of raw cacao tonight, but I'll talk more on that. I went and smoked or vaped, or someone gave me a medication, I'm probably then filtering the world at a level where everyone around me is. Therefore, because I was on copious amounts of opioids for pain and I could still focus and function because I could filter in so much. So what I feel happens is with the raw food diet is the nerves in the body feel like they're hydrated. Okay, if as soon as I eat too much dehydrated food or too much tamari or too much apple cider vinegar, which can cause a drying effect in the body, my nerves, my ADHD, it's like everything is grating me. I'm going to lose it. I'm going to yell. I'm going to scream, But if I'm on a raw food diet, I am so hydrated, and there's something to do with that. Now, I just want to preface that it's the only thing in my life that I feel hasn't been cured, or even mast cell activation can come up sometimes and I readjust my diet. But I have come to a place where I don't want it gone. Like I run every second day at the moment. I was running every day. I do Pilates every second day. I do so many things every day. And I believe it's because of a personality trait where I can just filter a lot. But I think there's a point where you bring in too much with someone with ADHD. And then what happens is you burn out and you need dopamine. So you start seeking out dopamine. So when I think of when I was on a denser diet, I was in riskier behaviors. I mean, doing things like going out, risky things when I was younger, because they were giving me something which kept me focused. If you give someone serotonin and dopamine, essentially an antidepressant, you'll hear they have more focus because it's stimulating. Okay, and that you'll find a way to stimulate yourself in any way to have focus. But I find on a raw food diet that doesn't happen. You have a plateau or a place where you are more constant. But the traits of an ADHD person are still there, and the tendencies I used to have, because I was prescribed pain medication for years. I coped with pain by smoking. At that time, I don't think there's any other way to do it because that's all I'm consumed with. When I eat this way, I change over. My pain is not there. My disease is not there. My life is amazing. But these ADHD traits are still there. So I saw somebody else up. The topic is ADHD and addiction. I saw somebody else ask up here, what about what's my best option to stand up against bullies? Now, I don't believe that this is completely in the topic, but it kind of is. Because if you have ADHD, you have this protective mechanism to make somebody almost suffer because you're burning alive. It literally feels like when I was eating the way I was and growing up, if someone came at me, it's like someone's poured acid on me. And it's like I'm going to attack. What I have found in my healing journey and with raw foods is the more I love me, it doesn't matter what other people say. And my response to, I don't see bullies anymore. Like, of course, I mean, as you get older, I don't know how old you are, but your interpretation of what people say, it's more about them. And when you feel like you're being bullied, trust me, when I'm going younger and I'm attacking someone or getting upset about something, it's not really them, it's me. And a great example is that is if now that I'm on raw food, I'd respond differently, which proves it's always been me. And when you see that all these people bullying, and I don't know what situation you're in, they're not your friends. You don't want to be around them. But if I could turn back to younger Sky and teach her anything, it is you have no idea the value of looking after yourself. You think because there's no quick reward that the going to bed early, choosing to have a cup of tea over having a glass of wine in your late teens, choosing to be around people who bring you up, choosing to not get stressed in your job, it adds up. It's like good karma. And if I could teach my younger self that, so if someone was bullying me, I would continue to work on myself, not be around this. And I don't know your situation. If you're quite young, I don't know how young you do want to involve parents and teachers. If you're getting into your teens, please know that if I could do anything as youngest guy, it would be that my whole life would be spent loving myself. So let me come down. People with ADHD need to grow up. So you can say that, but the essential thing is if you're born with these tendencies, you don't know how not to be it. So if these are these overbearing tendencies and patterns and behavioral responses to stimuli, is you will continue to do them whether you're shouted at, yelled at, belted up. It's not like the person just got it and now they remember what it was like to grow up. And actually, what I notice about people with ADHD or who have been diagnosed with it is they tend to not focus at all, but they absolutely excel at like what they are passionate about. I know most people who are top in their sport or their whatever they've learnt to do, it's because they've ignored learning in class. They've ignored everything around it and focused on their passion. Come on, you've got to go and do college now. I don't want to do college. You go into college, they flunk. But when they find what they love, because I've been in psych units, I've seen they absolutely excel. I have seen coming in psych units, I studied psychology for 5 years as well, is it's a usually doesn't, you don't just get, it may start as ADHD, but as you grow it, more likely you'll also get diagnosed with anxiety, depression, suicidal thought, not all of these, but some of these, bipolar, autism, and in my experience, that is where it becomes a psychiatric problem. To me, ADHD, yes, I know it's essentially as in the I think it's the DSVM 5. So it's like a psychological behavioral problem, but it's like a full blown psych issue can come off it. And I think what I've done, having a raw food diet and knowing these are traits of mine, is made peace with who I am. And I was talking about this earlier with addiction tendencies, where I used to be like, oh my God, I can't go near alcohol. Alcohol's bad. People who drink are bad because I was an alcoholic. Or smoking's disgusting. Those people are disgusting. That's stuff I have to work on myself. I shouldn't be worried what people are doing. I've got to stick on my journey. Okay. But I spoke about how alcohol has a purpose, okay? If I'm on a beach and someone has a bottle of vodka and I cut my foot on an oyster, I will grab that bottle and clean the wound, because I tell you what, there's some really bad bacteria. So I have to reframe things, because the more I sit in fear, the more somehow I start to attract addictions, okay? And also, the other thing I classified it is, if I'm in acute pain again and on a plane, I will have a small amount of alcohol to numb it. Now, in my brain, these things have no bearing on my life. They will never come into my life, but it makes the addiction have purpose, which isn't negative. Because I don't know what other people are like, but the more someone tells me, and including myself, I can't have something, somehow years later it seems to keep resurfacing. So I've made peace with what it is, but that has no bearing on my life. I'm not really going to be on a plane often in pain. I'm not really going to cut my foot on an oyster often and someone have a bottle of vodka. I live across the beach, I can get it. But I classify things in ways which I don't feel attacked by them. And that is helping me with addiction. But it feeds back into making peace. The more you say addiction, ADHD is a problem, the more you're telling yourself you're a problem. And I don't think that's true. I think it's like, it's my superpower. It's why I can do what I do. It's why I talk, get up and talk. And I just think that these traits are not made. You know, if someone will filter out everything but their passion, and they're not 40 until they find it, in society, that person is broken. In the matrix, that person is broken. We need to drug them. They need to listen to teachers. They need to behave in the play yard when somebody's bad, like mean to them. They shouldn't be sticking up for themselves. This is how problems start, right? The way the matrix is you should be a sheep. And no one with ADHD is a sheep. So I think that's, thank you, Tessa, for all you've done. I can see that. I'm 44. Sorry, I'm just going down here because I left it for a while. Yeah, facts. ADHD needs medicine to become stable and learn traits when you need to quit it and grow up. So that's the other thing, is I have been medicated for 10 years and I learnt nothing but to sit still. What I've learned eating a raw food diet is about how to look after myself, how to care for myself, how to respond to things appropriately, how to love myself, how to stay calm, and what my triggers are. Is when you're eating such a stimulating diet, you're always triggered as someone with ADHD. You can't not be. You are so affected by subtle energies if you have ADHD that you have no idea until you're basically one day, like myself, living off only watermelon and nature. And then when you start incorporating things like back in, you're like, holy crap, my whole personality is being affected by apple cider vinegar being poured on top of a salad, or salt on top of a piece of watermelon. This doesn't make these things bad, but do you have a right to now put another drug in your body, or does society have a right to tell people to do this, when the problem is they don't know how they feel? You being on a raw food diet, you really get in touch with who you feel. Okay, and I am not here to force you to do it. I'm just my experience, and I've been through it. And the simpler I eat, the more not only calm I am, but the more I'm able to, I don't know, respond to everything properly. Now, I am having like a raw chocolate, hot chocolate tonight. Now, when I first introduced cacao, because a lot of people don't like it, it does have caffeine in it, is I went back to having it like every few days. I was thinking about it all the time in an addictive type way. And the more I looked after myself, now I just have one occasionally, probably like 2 a month or something, maybe 3. And that's not addictive. But to get to that point, even where a chocolate's not addictive, I had to keep looking after myself, make sure that most of the day I'm having omega-3s, I'm having lots of greens, I'm keeping my meal not too sweet. If I was having too much even of this a certain type of raw food, in the end it was not doing me any good. So yes, they focus on what they're interested in because it's a soul path. You cannot, after all I've been through and everything was tried to be fixed physically, you cannot separate the physical, the mental, the spiritual, and the emotional. Okay? all of those have to heal on par. If you try and heal in just one of those, just a psychologist, I promise you it'll pop out somewhere else. If you try and heal it with just surgery, it'll just pop out somewhere else. You will only truly heal when you heal all three. And that's why good food, sunlight, and movement, and good sleep and low stress, you have to do no matter what medication, no matter what diet, no matter what. If you don't look after yourself, you have to honor what you put in your body to even heal. Like, I know people, I've never done it, but they do things like ayahuasca and I think they microdose mushrooms and stuff. I have not done this, but if you're looking after yourself and you feel you want to explore some area of your body to kind of push your healing, I get that. But I watch people go on these retreats and do this and come back and they go to nightclubs and they put all crap in their body and now they're going to go on a fast. You're not doing anything but creating more addictions. You have to find fundamentals that keep you not fixed instantly, but working towards a better mind, body, soul, and consciousness and spirituality, like all of it. I would do a lot of things with younger Sky. She would be a blast to be with. I was fun. I haven't changed in that respect. I think my fun side of it is like, even when I was really sick, I was always kind of happy at some level, but I think my ADHD helped me dissociate a lot from what was going on. ADHD should be called dopamine deficiency syndrome. Yes, but why are we getting deficient in dopamine? And I think you could say that is because we're not filtering things and it's just so stimulating, we're burning out. But also, why do these people, if they're deficient in dopamine, maybe we're born that way, so we find our true calling. We will not settle, we'll be restless and destructive almost until we sit in our truest passion. And then once you're in there, I watch people who can't sit in a class do things for 7 hours, 6 hours straight that has like physical exertion. I watch people who cannot read a book, focus of photography for an entire day because that's their passion. So what if the deficiency isn't the problem, but we have become this way? Also, they say in like the days where we were cave people is we were the survivors. We were doing 10 things, filtering everything coming in, so we survived. Put us in a modern day classroom and apparently we're all broken. Like, I think that's the takeaway from this is there's a survival aspect to it. So I knew as a kid, even eating before I found raw foods, the best I did was summer holidays. And every kid might go, oh, that was really good, but not even spiritually and emotionally. I mean, physically, my symptoms would go because it's low stress. You don't stop moving as a kid. And this is what, when you stop that true calling, especially when you need dopamine, you got to move. Okay. If you want to keep your dopamine levels up, you want to move. And plus you then also get endorphins, which are also anything that can make the system focus, essentially is what an ADHD person does. But what I'm trying to say here is you're not broken. If you're still suffering, you haven't found your true calling and your passion. But underneath, we need to look after ourselves. I'm in Denmark specialist centers with this, thousands of them, and we call. Okay, I'm in Denmark. Every city has specialist centers for this with thousands in them. We are all educated everyone. I'm not sure exactly what that means, but how is this a problem that just appeared and why? Like, is this going to get worse if we have cities with massive specialist centers for only one thing, which only 100 years ago would have served? So a lot of, like, my grandfather, he was, I can't remember, he was a carpenter, and he built my grandma's house. Amazing. When they renovated, he built it. He definitely had ADHD, never sat still. When he had spare time, he was fishing, he was helping others build, but he had a purpose, so it wasn't seen as ADHD until it came in when I was growing up. He was seen as a productive member of society. He was, now we're supposed to sit in our house and have extraordinary stimulating food. So my grandfather didn't grow up having stimulating foods. I don't think he got fed very often, to be honest. But, my nan would make him meat and 3 veg, have a bit of fruit during the day. I don't know, a sandwich. Now we've got people who aren't doing what he did, but eating foods which weigh us down. So I don't know how now someone like my grandfather would need a specialist clinic in the middle of a city and educated over something which made him a very successful person. A successful person these days isn't one that builds a house, fixes the neighbor's fence, my grandfather could do it all, right? And I think a lot of people were like that. But now a successful person is someone who doesn't say boo for 14-hour days in front of a computer. And when you finish that 14-hour day, you've now got to go back to university because there's a whole lot of people coming through that are going to take your job. Plus you're stressed, plus you haven't slept, plus the food has changed and you're overstimulated from the food before you started your day. And that's a successful person today. And if you don't fit into that mold, you got to head down to that clinic and get some pills and be diagnosed and judge yourself and feel even worse for being someone who, with the right tools, would be the successful people that can do things that others can't do. Or even these things may be hindering you from finding your true hyperfocus. You'll hear it all the time. People with ADHD can hyperfocus, but they only do it when they're in their true passion. It's why I can sit on here and do one of these lives for hours, because it's my passion, right? I've lived this, I can share it. But you get me to do something I don't like. So I do YouTube podcasts every week. I can do the podcast for hours. I can talk all day. Sitting down on a Sunday and typing out designing the thumbnails and typing up the description is the thorn in my hip every week. But I can do something that requires the brain to focus. Like every day, I'm a health coach. I can go over in a session because I'm so passionate about helping people, right? But you put me in an academic situation where it isn't my calling. It's not and you could say, well, you don't get enough dopamine from it, but why do I get dopamine from this? Other people can't do this. They prefer to sit behind a computer and actually type things up and like find the full stops, like editing and all that type of stuff. That's their thrill. But the difference is the person whose thrill is doing that is usually they can do multiple things. Someone with ADHD, usually there's only a few things they will literally zoom in at. And you'll find it'll be things that use all parts of the body. So usually people, I know someone with ADHD who's a brilliant photographer. They're moving around, walking around, engrossed in what they're doing. I know someone who's a great surfer. I know me, and you'll notice that these people, my grandfather, he wants to think how he's going to structure a house, build a house, mix the concrete. These people are doing multiple things, and we're trying to get medications to shut their brain down to only ever like to do one thing at a time. Like you're only allowed to be the cement maker, or you're not allowed to be like, I'm going to go here and I'm going to do this. I'm going to keep my brain on hyper alert. Maybe that's why we're not supposed to be like bathing in dopamine. So we're vigilant. I just think there's more to it, especially with where I am now. Okay, I like this comment. So ADHD has become some kind of excuse to take medicine, grow up and learn, diagnose it and quit it. So I don't think that's completely true, because when I took medication, I thought I was broken and that this medication I'm taking is supposed to fix me. In fact, most of the medications I take or took in my life, I thought it was because I was broken. I was never broken. I never learnt to look after myself. I never knew the value of it. I actually valued medication and doctors' lectures and doctors' journals and going to university more than knowing that. I actually thought that what I ate and did every day had no relationship to the congenital disease, which I was born with, but its expression was extreme because I was inflamed, because I was not looking after myself. What I want for the world is you can take the medication if you want, but your job, that's a split second of your day. Your job is not working for somebody else. It's to make sure you're eating foods which constantly make you feel good, that you get some movement in every day, that you ground on that electromagnetic field of the earth, which is free, which every other animal is connected to, and we somehow aren't. Do that and have low stress, and then choose what medications you want to take. But you can't think like you're not doing those things properly. We're not taught them properly. And then what happens is we're told by all this science that these people have low dopamine levels and you're born with it, and that's a problem. But as I've just said here, what if we're not bathed in it because we're supposed to keep doing things and be hyper vigilant, and we're just apparently not fitting into a mold? Like, I just think there's so much value in looking after yourself, and it's never taught at school. Like, it might be taught more now, I don't know. But like, it is, before you try fix something, try get the fundamentals right. Um, I am good. I know you too. I'm 44. You were close. Does it ever drive you crazy how fast the night changes? Do you mean with people's comments? Because I'm very blessed Tessa's here and I can see the marvelous job she's doing at taking everyone out. So someone's says I have ADHD. I do. Um, and I think the first part of healing it is looking at it with what can you do? There's more to this life than all the physical diagnoses and anatomy that you've heard from school. There's more to it. It's not just, if you think about, you may feel you're on this planet for a long time, but if you look at the scheme of time, we're not even on it for a pinprick. Time has been here for like what, eons? And this is so small. It's not really possible that we're here for even just a blip. There's so much more to looking after yourself. Think about things on a spiritual level as well. And I believe people with ADHD are going through it spiritually, as in like there's like some sort of awakening going on where you're awakened to the fact you're not supposed to sit in the matrix. Like, you're supposed to do more, live in your passion, live in your purpose, do things that make you feel good. And when you feel bad and you have outbursts, it's not that you're a bad person, it's that you're not in alignment. That can help a lot too. Oh, thank you. uh, I'm a cocaine 24-hour party. Yeah, see, that it doesn't last. It doesn't last. You have to find a way to be at peace with who you are. Correct. Sit still and become stable. Medicine is your to become stable and find ground. It's not to keep eating. I don't know what the keep eating thing is, but yeah, it's like, I just think that you could, I think that's why it never lasted with me, is it got me to do things that were never in alignment with me. So you just end up destroying yourself. Because now, look, maybe I'm like, I was saying this earlier, is my ADHD runs my week. Is, what is it, a Saturday night for me, and I jump on with a hot chocolate. And I know it helps people, but if I plan this out and overthink it, I've already destroyed the process of it, you know? And I do like planning out my podcast because I like to meet up with the person. But as for my week, I have clients. But what happens in between? Some days I will do exercise, but now I did get really regimented with routine, because they say routine helps. But I found over time I was destroying myself by non-stopping and trying to beat myself by doing more and more. Now I've made peace with it. I'm like, I feel like I'm a great person because of doing this now and doing this now and having a bit of structure here, but floating, like doing, like more going with the flow, what nature is like. I am nature. And although I'm indoors right now and in more a structured box, is I want to be nature inside and have more flow. Um, So a raw hot chocolate low, how does that work? Raw cacao beans or processed? They're fermented, and these are, so there are anything as a raw foodist. Now I want to classify this. So I did for a few years what I would say is more fruitarian frugivore diet to heal. Now a raw foodist, if you want to have nuts or seeds, I'm just having this conversation with a client. You can't get almonds that haven't been boiled and pasteurized. You can't get anything in a packet which hasn't had heat attached to it, because otherwise it'd grow mold. Like, so the first few years I did nothing from a packet besides an occasional piece of raw nori sheets. Now to me, a raw vegan is eating things in its raw form. And I'm not living this planet without, well, raw chocolate, which is cacao, but it is, I think it's living food. So essentially, as far as I understand it, it's fermented and then it's melted down. So it is heat treated, but you can't not on this lifestyle. And that's something I have to make peace with. I'm not here to be, and I've said this, I don't tell people you can't have cacao, you can have cacao. This is where I'm at. But as a raw foodist, many raw foodists are having miso, which is cooked soybeans. It's just the nature that have been fermented. It's because they're fermented foods, so living foods, but also raw foods essentially to me is raw foods in their raw form. If you eat only fresh foods, you're frugivore or fruitarian. That's my sequence of it. You can see it however you like. But I don't have it often either. So that's what I was saying earlier is I only have about 3 a month. And I'm not living my life without chocolate, guys. No food will ever help you besides if you live in America. You live in Britain 2 hours from me, so it's not about food. You've been on medicine for 10 years, becoming state on medicine is for that. No, stimulants don't fix it. As soon as you stop the stimulant or you have a stimulant come off, usually people do worse. And the same with SSRIs, they cause brain damage. I'm not in England or Europe, I'm in Australia, and it is totally food related. I'm not saying it's the whole picture, but you need to eat well to get a good result. It stands to reason the majority of people in the world that eat a healthier diet. So isn't it like all the blue zones? They aren't out there popping Ritalin. Think about that for a second. And I'm not saying that, each of them eats slightly different, but they eat not even a raw diet like myself, a relatively healthy diet, and they live longer, which means they're free of disease because they haven't died from disease or an accident. But we're saying disease here because accident can happen to anyone, and that doesn't take out as many numbers as disease. So that's not true because the longest living people aren't popping pills. We are talking about food. Yes, we are, but I was trying to give some context about that. I don't believe any of you who have been diagnosed or feel you have ADHD should spend your energy and time researching more about ADHD. You should spend that time looking after yourself. When I healed myself, I realized how many years on stimulant medication I had been down rabbit hole after rabbit hole after rabbit hole to try and fix myself. And another rabbit hole, another top doctor, another surgery for my pain. And then you take all of that away and you force a human to survive, which is my instinct, right? And I found that still having the vegan foods, I ended up in bed. I noticed when I had raw food, I could get up. No chronic fatigue, no POTS, no GERD, no face pain. So I just kept eating the fresh food and all my disease went. But I noticed over time that these problems or like ADHD, like the other day mum's like, oh, it's really cold today, make sure you stay warm. And I'm like, I just got back from running in the running. I'm like your little ADHD baby. Someone who has the type of personality that I do thrives off running in the rain. There's many benefits when we used to be like living outdoors to a person like that. In this day and age, that's called problematic and risky behavior, where essentially all I'm doing is running in the rain. Do you see what I'm saying? It's like you should be inside. You should be calm. And it's about owning these quirks. But you can't own them until you learn to look after yourself because you don't know the clutter. Like you can really lessen the extent that you suffer. That's the thing I want to share is if you eat a clean lifestyle, is it may not completely heal everything, but you will suffer a lot less and seek out not trying to escape because you're not suffering so much. So, default, give your boyfriend or dog, it doesn't matter, medicine, 10 years, worked and made you stable. That's the purpose of medicine. No, I think you're confused. There's only 7 medicines that actually fix disease. Does everybody know this? One of them is an antibiotic. One of them is a cancer medication. One of them is an Alzheimer's medication. There's only a handful. And they may fall under different names. Every other drug goes in to suppress a symptom. that food for thought. Go eat good food. They are no drugs. You can go chat GTP, Google this. There's like only a handful, and there is hundreds and thousands of drug types. This isn't patents, I don't think. This is drug types. So they don't make drugs to fix things. They make drugs to stop you feeling things because they haven't been able to beat the human body and fix things. Okay? So that's something that you should think about. There's not Ritalin out there that's ever fixed someone with ADHD. As soon as it wears off at the end of the day, the person is, if not worse. There's whole Reddit feeds on this, is they crash out. And the worst thing for someone with ADHD to do is crash out, because it's with ADHD, you either go, or you're a zombie. And so stimulant medication brings you into focus. So all your energy seems to hyperfocus into whatever. I mean, what I noticed, and I see people say this all the time, is when they take the medication is you become an expert on beaver migration patterns. Like you learn things that you weren't meant to learn that. Do you know what I mean? Like you go study for university, but you've gone off and seen where the seals are going and where the sharks are migrating to. And that is brain training, but this is all much easier when you look after yourself. We are not born with it. It's caused by the environment. Well, there's like a total, so from when I was a young age, I never slept. Like literally never slept. It used to take my dad driving me around all night to fall asleep. As soon as the car stopped, I'd be awake. It's a trait of someone with ADHD. You give them a bit of stimulation and they relax. Happens in an aeroplane still. So you put me in an aeroplane and I fall asleep every time the plane elevates like this and the thrusters make that massive loud noise. I like fall asleep. And these are all traits and it's similar, runs in my family. Hasn't skipped a generation, these traits of people. But what I'm saying is you go back a couple generations to my grandpa and he was not diagnosed with it. He excelled in the community at everything he applied himself to because it was all manual as well as thinking. That's what ADHD is. ADHD, not ADD, but ADHD is great at doing is combining that physical exertion with thinking. The most calm I think is when I'm running. The most normal level, I think, is when I'm running. Thank you. No, I'm not a doctor. This is all lived experience. I did study psychology for 5 years, though. Yeah, I agree. Phoenix Rising has said I think they confuse ADHD with being a kid sometimes, and I agree. And I just think I do agree. Like sometimes these are just traits, but I had what you would call like the absolute, it's very rare in a girl, the absolute classic ADHD where you don't sleep, you have emotional outbursts, you never sit still. It's just like from a young age, they're just, and especially I guess compared to other children. But these are the traits that get me doing what I do. I hear all the time, Sky, so many people message me, how do you do all you do in a day? And I'm like, I think the ADHD helped me survive all the disease that I had. But also I think I've mastered it and made peace with it. I don't want to shut it down. I want to have lots of energy. I just want it to go wherever my passion pulls me. So, yes, I had these done. We call that a working man. Yes, we do. But what I believe is in the past, some of the best working men in society that were building houses and building cars and doing what most, especially men did, because women didn't work. It's more recent that women have worked, is that their skills of thinking on their feet made them all very normal. And now all of a sudden these men are supposed to sit in an office. Now, someone like my dad had a very top job and he doesn't sit still, but I think sit still he does. He has this focus, right? He was a director for a big company here in Australia, but he would get up every day and exercise when he first got up, eat pretty much raw food most of the day, exercise again at lunch. And usually when he finished his day, he was off playing basketball. So he found some way to look after himself, but also incorporate movement. because his job, I promise you, you do not, if I told you his job, you'd be like, that's the most boring job in the world. But he has this ability to master it. Whereas I think a lot of men who are doing like computer type work will come home and drink or to try and wind down because they're so overstimulated. So, we as people should have seen a lion and get like this cortisol rush and this adrenaline rush, and then we run, and it balances out the sympathetic and the parasympathetic nervous system. But instead of doing that now, we're so stressed from a job which is overstimulating us and people yelling at us through the phone, we get home and we drink, which is an addictive tendency, which people say increases dopamine. But the major thing is this dopamine seems to do is give people some sort of focus. And when they're taking in so much. But imagine if this person was building roofs, is how much more they would feel they're getting, sorry, they're able to use what's coming in because they need to, feel the wind, get movement. They're thinking through their head because they've designed the arch. We're not talking about just how there's modern day tradies who are doing one component. We're talking about, like, from what my pop did, he would design, build, make the cement. Everything's compartmentalized. So even when people are like builders these days, they still haven't designed it. Everything's much more separate. I'm not saying that's like the full picture here, but I'm just saying how much society's changed. She can do what she likes, but when she don't like it, she calls it ADHD. You start to understand the chat. Or maybe, I'm not sure. Yeah. Oh, you had a different type of learning disability. I think these are all our spiritual callings. It's true, because ADHD, it's really our spiritual calling. And when you understand that, and maybe you're not there and ready to see that yet, is you can look at what you love doing and what makes you feel suppressed. And I think with an ADHD person is when you feel suppressed, you feel threatened and you attack. That's what I think of myself, right? But other people in their other learning ways, when they're not in their alignment, I think they feel suppressed. And I think the ADHD, I feel suppressed too, but our natural reflex is to create some sort of chaos. Okay, I had a professor who looked like you and probably a similar age as you. She was very mean to me, although I was an average student. So you're probably only average, and I'm sorry that you suffered that. You're probably only average because you didn't like the subject. It's probably, you're not supposed to be good at everything. We're supposed to be the master of something, and that isn't everything. ADHD medication, not the right one, the wrong brand. That your doctor's job. Here in Denmark, we can choose which brand. I've been on all of them. I was on all of them at once. I was on Vyvanse. I was on dexamphetamine. I was on, what's the other one that starts with M? Modafinil. And then they tried Ritalin. There's no cure for ADHD. That's why everyone's still walking around with it. Or spiritual awakening, or whatever we decided to call it here. But I'm not here to argue about it. If that's what you believe, sure. Need to accept yourself for who you are and be free to be yourself and not try to think so much. Yes! Yes. We do. We need to just accept ourselves for who we are. We don't need, if you're looking after yourself, you're doing exercise and somehow you get a tumor and you need to get it removed. That's very different than somebody telling you who you are is problematic. That's the moral of this story here. Is weed bad for the brain? Extremely bad. So when I was in psych units, and psych is very different. I'd been sick most of my life, and then I had a break with reality. But people who smoke it every day can be fine, but then there's this point where they hit some sort of schizophrenic level. So many in there have it, and they talk about all these voices they constantly hear. They used to always ask, "Don't you hear the voices?" And I'm like, no. I feel like there was presence with me when I dissociated, like angels or something, when I went through what I call the dark night of the soul, but never just voices. That's kind of scary. Also, if you look at the brain scans over time, the brain completely, parts that used to work just shut down. And I spoke earlier that a lot of naturopaths use it as a medicine, but you have to be careful the person doesn't get addictive. It's different if you break your leg, you need it for 3 days to get through pain and you never think of it again. If you need to think about it to get through a day, you're addicted. and it's not great. Uh, uh, Weed, DMT, shrooms, all of it, let's go. No one gets high like me. Well, if you hear my story, not that that was really my mindset, but I was on a lot of stuff, and I promise you, when reality hits, if the soul wants to kind of crack open and actually make something of this life, it will put you through hell to experience who you truly need to be. When you feel reality after being on so many medications, like I had been for years, and I see this in some of those Reddit chats, like literally people take their life after some of these psych meds are taken off them because they can't bear the pain. I lost my concentration for years. I feel like only being on raw foods helped me get it back. Um, I'm out, darling. I hope you guys remember medicine is stable to you. It's purely worked on. It's guide 10 years. Look at her besides the grifting part. Take care from Denmark. I think we're just talking about different things here. You take care too. Uh, Thank you, Tessa. You're working overtime tonight. What is your philosophy? My philosophy is all is love. We can talk about ADHD, we can talk about food, we can talk about exercise, we can talk about nature. If you let love be your compass, you will always be going into the light. You may take a few steps back, but you'll keep going forward. You'll find who you're really meant to be. So that's what I believe is everything is love. Like the purpose of us being here, the reason I was made, the greatest connections on earth, the greatest masterpiece come from love from the heart. ADHDers are just extreme lovers. Like they can't, if it's shut down, they can't deal with it. And that's why I think the more you can, if so you have a child that has ADHD, I would spend all the time you can nurturing their passion because they can't escape it. It's their true calling. You can't force an ADHD without a ton of medication into an office. And even that, behind the scenes, they're having a nervous breakdown. You're better off to we're only here for a short period. You got to do what you love. Be who you are, love what you do. Would most people say this woman is insane? I definitely was insane for a period there, but I would have to say I'm one of the most grounded people now. But there's always room to work. I don't mind if you think I'm insane. That probably means my life is not for you. You do. Frackett said, with ADHD, you usually learn what you have interest in. You can't escape it. It is like you could see a kid not concentrate on anything for years, and then maybe you buy them a truck and a dirt pit, and you watch them for like 7 hours. They don't even want to eat because they're just running around. And what if it's that soul imprint that they've recognized they're here to do? And maybe they're going to do design roads when they're older. Or that's something is like, if they have an iPad now, put like design truck games on it. Like really nurture what that child is doing. Because it's like you can't see anything except your true love on this earth, like that true passion. And if you haven't found it yet, you've definitely found what you don't want to do. And there's little snippets, like growing up is an ADHD likes to move usually, and you likes to move. If you have ADHD, sometimes you like to overthink things. And what are those things? When you're happiest, like on a computer or reading, and you just gone in. I don't know what that means. Yes, they essentially are meth. Well, no, I don't think I've had meth, but essentially they're pretty much the same design. But this is the whole thing is that like there's this process where if you're not getting medicated, most people who aren't looking after themselves will end up on some addictive drug. You're better off to find what your passion is. Chocolate is good for you. It's sucrose is the killer. I find a little bit of chocolate helps me. I find, to be honest, I can't do it every day. It's too stimulating. I do like having matcha because it has the L-theanine in it, which helps you concentrate, and especially with the caffeine in it, slows the breakdown of the caffeine. Oh, sorry, slows the release of the caffeine, so you don't get that. Matcha really helps me. You just used to figure out how to deal with it. But what if that time you spent figuring out how to deal with it, you went for a walk and then you came back and made yourself a muesli bowl? And then, sure, you go back to what you're doing, but the next day you do that. At least instead of going down rabbit holes or ignoring it, you're moving forward in some sort of way. That's what I did when I healed. Not that it was muesli bowls, but raw food bowls because it made me feel good. It's like you're not getting a hit out of this now, but it's got to add up. If you keep putting good in, some good's got to come out. And it did. ADHD is not real. I agree with that. Kale is good. I don't move about to finish. I'm 44, but thanks for the 35 and the 32s. Lovely. Skeletor woman. No, this was Skeletor woman. I think she's still up here somewhere. Let's see. I put on 20, maybe, yeah, about 17 kilos from this, or maybe 20 kilos from this photo here. Here. Oh, that's not it. Here. That's Skeletor. That's like tiny. I'm not like that tiny now. Like I'm 20 kilos heavier now. I think like when I went to America, I was amazed at how big people were. In Australia, we don't have as many people that are like as big. Maybe that's why you're used to seeing big people. But yeah, that's more Skeletor. All that. So when you've been through things like I'm showing you, what people say in the chat really can't hurt you. I've been through it. I've had so many surgeries. I've been so sick. Hey, party boy, I can see that you're deleting things. Thank you. Yeah, it's treating the symptoms. I'm not live. I am live. Okay, ADHD is nothing but emotional neglect as a child, not learning about adult habits. Joining the army made me realize I'm fixable, but it takes a lot of work. That's an interesting story. It sounds like you've done some good healing. But yes, there is a lot of trauma. It's almost like you take on, because you're like so sensitive with someone with ADHD, is you take on what somebody says or an adult says so personally to the point it almost causes you unbearable pain. And but good for you that you've healed or done a lot of work. She's not even live. I don't know what that means. What does ADHD mean? Attention deficit hyperactivity disorder. So you have an attention deficit and you're hyper. So ADD is attention deficit disorder, so you don't have that constant movement. They say, and this happened to me at birth, that it's something to do with the dysregulation of the nervous system, the atlas bone and the vagus nerve, the atlas bone and the neck. And not just me, but someone very close to me also. So I had a very traumatic birth and I had like a funny kinked neck when I was pulled out. Someone else who's got extreme ADHD has the same thing. Babies are very soft. We're not supposed to be pulled out with 2 pairs of pliers. And remember, I'm saying that from birth, I could not stop. I could not sleep. I was never asleep. I was always screaming, not just as a baby, but I never slept growing up. I still struggle to sleep a bit, but almost like the nerves, if you pinch them and pinch them out of the neck, they're going to be taking in feedback, not just maybe internally, but externally. Who knows what's going on there? But I do think there's different types of it. But if we can see it as like part of who we are, it's not always negative. Remember that show Minty? I don't. Not Minty. Hello, Canada. I'm back. No, I don't remember Angela Kelly. I got off a bar shift. Now it's wind up time for me. I feel like it's getting wind up time for me. What? It's so rainy here. It's I'm gonna kick a light. Um, it's only 6:30. Hello, Bamboo H2O. Okay, girl. Keep fighting for the good. God bless you. Yes, that's what we're here to do. Fight for the good. I don't remember. I don't think we got it. Remember the show Minty? Hang on, let me have a look. I can look this up. Let me have a look. Let's look. Uh, oh, I never saw this. 1999. I didn't think we got it in Australia. Minty. How funny, I'd never seen this. Jack of all, master of none. That's pretty much a good definition of ADHD. But that's why you've got to become the master. You've got to find what you love doing, guys. Chris, this whole ADHD thing is not a real thing. It's just an emotional neglect as a child. Many people have this. Therapy is what you need, not medication. I think you don't need therapy. Therapy kept me sick. Showing up in an office every week, repeating trauma, just solidifies those neural connections in the brain. Week after week, and not even just in the session. You're about to go there, so you think of all your trauma. You bring that all up. You solidify that in the brain. I healed when I let go of all that. I was like, this whole thing is a whole lot of crap. And yeah, I just got out in nature, and I was sick for 32 years. I had over 60 surgeries. I dissociated. I had psych visits. They injected things into me. I healed when I got rid of that. I was like, this is if I can't get better, all these people do in psych units is the same people keep coming back and coming back. It ain't working. If it was working, the people would leave and never come back. So I really don't think that's true, in my opinion. That's only my opinion. The time I do think the therapy is right is, and I studied psychology, is if you are in a specific trauma, not your whole life is the trauma, but like a fire or something which you want to specifically get to a goal of reaching in the sessions, like that, and then if it's not working, you have to stop. Otherwise, you literally constantly think of it before you go. How many private jets do you have? None yet. They're coming. You're back. Hi, Aria. Why do you suntan so much? It's bad for you. It's winter and raining. What are you talking about? I get in the sun as soon as I feel hot. I get out of the sun. I don't like tan for ages. I love the sun. But as soon as it feels warm, I'm not someone who lays in it for days. And it's winter in Australia. What are you talking about? I have schizophrenia and bipolar now. I'm taking advantage of my artistic side and a musician. You're amazing. I did bring this up yesterday. When I was in psych units, is these people have extreme skill, and especially someone will just jump on a piano or a guitar and play things like I've never heard. And we were talking about Eminem and Sia. Most of their best work came off the back of being in psych units. So there's something to this. Good for you. Yes, diet, mindset, but you cannot skip nature and low stress. I'm from Australia. G'day. Can I get a shout out? Is that Xavier Gamer, I think? Thanks for subscribing. You could consider interviewing a family member with ADHD for your channel. I could do that. I think it's easier. I think that I could, but I think they like to keep it personal. Unlike me, and they say that ADHD is overshare, but I feel like I overshare because I overthink and I've thought everything through, so I may as well just share it. Where are you from? I'm from Australia. You can't tell me people, you're a black woman. Thank you. I do wear a bit of fake tan, but it's winter. I think I just have that sort of skin. My dad is so dark. I live by the beach. I haven't been outdoors, literally. It's been raining a lot. Even though I've run in the rain, I'd say a while. Even when I was in Cairns, I was working a lot, which is warmer. I think I just go tanned and it stays. My dad's like that. He's so dark. My mum and my sister are more on the pastier side. So you were addicted. Yes, I was in, so there's different ways. So when I was in chronic pain for years. I had many surgeries. I'd be in pain relief in the hospital, but I hated it. I hated any pills or tablets most of my life. Even I got a flu and someone to go take Panadol. I hated the feeling. And then I was in so much pain, they started to put me on anti-inflammatory medications, and then they put me on an SSRI for the pain, and it helped. It stopped a lot of the pain. But there's ramifications. If you suppress somebody's emotions, they never process. That's half the reason I think I dissociated. Anyway, I then because I was put on an SSRI for the pain, they sent me to a psychiatrist. The psychiatrist discovered I really don't have anxiety or depression, but I have ADHD from birth. Like when you listen to how I behaved my whole life, with this constantly crying, like you've got my sister to compare me to and other children as well. So then I was put on amphetamines for about a year or two, but then when they found the disease in my back, I wanted off all meds, and that was like 22. Then the pain in my back came back, and this is where I bled out. I had my stomach removed, my duodenum removed. I was on massive opiates for that, but still that wasn't really, you come off it, right? Then the pain in my pelvis came back, and this is where they put me on massive amounts of opioids. They put me massive amounts. I had a fentanyl patch on. I was on Valium, SSRIs again, ketamine when I went in, Botox in the spine, local anesthetic in the spine. And I learned to function like that. And the amount of opioids until they gave me a hysterectomy just continued to increase to a point where I was on 500 milligrams a day. Now, if you don't know how much that is, a nurse came on here and said after most surgeries, the most she's seen in a person is 25 milligrams. I'm taking 500 milligrams in the morning and at night, and my breakthrough when a flare-up comes is another 60. So when you say addicted, I was on some heavy stuff. Plus, I'd be, every time I had a surgery, which was over 60, I'd have more morphine, pethidine was usually what they gave me because I already had the fentanyl patch on my arm. Once I had the hysterectomy, all the physical pain stopped. And this medication made me so sick. Like I was like, get it off me. And every time I lowered it, I got very sick. And I was lowering it so fast because it was making me feel sick. And this is where that photo you guys saw, where I got really, I couldn't absorb anything. So at this point, I'd lost my stomach. I'd been on a walking stick. I'd had probably about 50 surgeries. Some of them came after, but this is that photo. That's 2017 when I was 37 kilograms. All my blood work was just showing that I was just basically dying. So even my best friend at the time thought I was not going to make it. And then I dissociated, lost part of my memory, stopped talking. They took me off everything I was still on. So 37 kilograms, been in a bed basically for 15 years, and they ripped me off. I think it was like I was still on about 20 of fentanyl, about 25 of oxy, still endone, Valium, SSRIs, and stimulants. It threw me on a psych floor. The amount of pain I went through on that psych floor, there are no words to describe. Losing my stomach was a literal walk in the park compared to being thrown in a psych unit after not really being out in the world besides hospitals or a bed. I survived that, came off everything they'd injected into me, put me on. I was hallucinating in there. They were injecting me with things that actually make me feel like I hallucinate. Every time they inject, I'm like spun out, okay? So then I'm off everything, and then I do well on a paleo diet, But then at the end of that year, I get shingles through the eye, and this triggered FND, a functional neurological disorder, which displayed as a stroke. Most days I couldn't walk or talk or butter my toast or tie my shoes. I had full-time carers again, and I had extreme PTSD, reliving surgeries, reliving missing my entire life from when I was like, well, essentially I missed 3 years from when I was 8, and then from 16 I was always in hospital or bed. I do get 3 days of school and then get so sick I'd need 3 days, 4 days off. That was the start, and then eventually I just didn't get out of bed for 15 years. And then I went to a neurological hospital, learnt to walk, talk, do all that sort of stuff again at basic, at a very minimal level. Still couldn't watch a television, still couldn't read things, couldn't call up a bank and say, can you transfer money, or I identify myself, couldn't remember where I lived. And they even classified how much I was I had psychologists, psychiatrists up the woo-ha. I was flopped over a lot of time from the waist down, and they said they've seen that in shell shock victims, but they hadn't seen it since. I couldn't move from the waist. It was weird, okay? But while I was there flopped over, I was reliving things I didn't even know were in my brain. Then to settle it, they kept putting me on other drugs, but they put me back on SSRIs and stimulants. And what that did is bring me present. As soon as the stimulant worn off, I was not present. I was like literally out. Then I worked out, I'd never really been a drink. Like I'd drink on a Saturday night when I was younger because it helped numb the pain or the event. But then the whole time I was like sick, never drunk. Then for about 3 months, I worked out that alcohol made me not relive things as much. It numbed me. And so I did that. My liver started to fail, back into hospital for 3 weeks. And my parents said, we're not caring for you anymore. This is where I became homeless. I did stay in some hotels, back into hospitals, having some seizures, tried to go to rehab, had seizures, slept outside a hospital. Sometimes didn't go back to the hotel room, stayed outside. I'm dissociated, right? And I can move around, but only very basically, only what the neurological hospitals let me. I'm not running. I'm not walking very fast. Most of the time I was just collapsed. And then I got my own place. I'd been vegan for a couple of years. My blood work was stopped making proteins, was getting sicker. Too sick to cook, ate the food raw, got up. Within 6 weeks, all my symptoms were gone. Never been sick really again. I did have a bout of shingles, got over that with juicing, and I also had a broken toe. And when I ate too much fruit for a period of time, my blood sugars got really bad. Not really bad, but they got high and low sodium. And I stopped needing doctors as soon as I ate raw foods. And I was a girl who literally either lived in doctors or a bed. So that's my addiction journey thus far. I'm 44. I have used carob. I love carob. I haven't used carob in a drink. A lot of the recipes you see are carob, not chocolate. They're usually my chocolate donuts, carob. I only occasionally, I won't even finish this. I'm a bit over it. I only drunk like that much. Bit of a waste. What I'd usually do is put it in the fridge or freeze it and make usually freezing destroys it. Leave it in the fridge, it makes a mousse, and I'll have like a few scoops. But see, this is where I know I'm not addicted to chocolate or caffeine, because I just get over it. My son was diagnosed with ADHD, and he did take medication for a while, but he learned how to control it. That's amazing. Good for him. Yeah, the anxiety. Are you talking about the anxiety from the meds? That's why I feel like, yeah, they're just... I have an addiction. But I have no idea how to fix it. It's been going like this for 3 years. Does anyone have any tips? Well, if you just listen to my story, if I don't eat the way I eat, I'm addicted to everything. I'm in chronic pain. As soon as I eat too much dehydrated food, all those diagnoses that I told you about just start coming back. There's something to do with the hydration, the electricity, the low amount of stress the food takes on the body. If I was to suggest anything to anyone, diet and exercise and working on yourself. You can't avoid addiction until you decide to take the plunge to look after yourself. So all the energy, like When I was at rock bottom and discovered that the raw foods worked, I went back to drinking, even coming out from my liver failing 3 times, I think it was about 3 times. And you have to find ways to cope. And I decided if I was so good at poisoning myself, imagine what I was capable of if I spent that energy putting only good in. That's kind of the foundation of how I found this. Like, imagine if I can excel at being on opioids and 60 surgeries and laying in a bed for 15 years, I've excelled in the dark. Imagine if you swapped that over to the light. So every time you went to get a coffee, you now get green tea or peppermint tea. Every time you think you need to have a cigarette to escape pain, you're going to breathe. Every time you go to grab, by this stage I was eating more whole foods, but you are going to eat just the veg. If you can put poisons in your system, you can withstand Brussels sprouts. And in my mind, if I can be so good at mastering the dark, just switch it. And that's essentially how I overcame my addiction. Is now if I want to cope, I'm breathing in incense, and you sit by that incense pot and you breathe. You've withstood withdrawals nobody should withstand. You can withstand breathing in some potpourri. Like, that was my mindset. Is if you are addicted, you aren't just feeling pleasure, you're feeling pain beyond pain imaginable. Not just before you start the addiction, but every time you crash out. You're feeling all your emotions, plus you're having a come down. Imagine if you never had another come down, but you never have another huge up. You have a better consistency, respect for yourself. You find a place in the world you were always meant to be. And it all starts by owning the fact that if you've put up with come downs as well as your horrible emotions from whatever you're addicted to, because every up has a down, you'll be fine in the light. You just have to commit to it and become, instead of mastering like me, is taking alcohol off my family, or that's probably the worst I did. But I'm talking about sitting with myself when these things stop working. And I was determined to be consistent with good stuff. And it worked. Like, I'm here and right now. I've never gone back. I had a few coffees this year when I broke my toe. Besides that, never gone back to anything. Thank you. All these beautiful eye color. How much is a doctor in Australia for just visiting? They need an appointment first. So in Australia, it used to be you could go to medical centres and get it for free. I used to be on disabilities, and I have even though I don't get the payments, I get you have to have been well for a certain amount of time to not have the card. So I get, this is now, let me tell you how much it cost before. I will just visit now. If I get like shingles and need someone to diagnose a rash, I just use the old free concession card and go see a doctor to diagnose me. When I was sick, I was seeing doctors which cost like $340 a session. I might get some of that back from Medicare, which is government funded, which is like $150. I might get another 90 or 120 back from my private health insurance. But even that only used to cover so many visits for doctors per year, and I was tapped out way early. There was easily $1 million spent on my health, if not more. With these massive trauma surgeries, without to bring in new other doctors because the hospital didn't have a doctor to cut me open, and more than 20. It was so many blood transfusions when I bled out, and then my pelvic surgeries. Every time I had Botox put in the spine, they needed to double it. That's $1,000 before you have an anaesthetist, a surgeon, a hospital stay, and that was going on often to relieve pain. That's just one thing. I was on a whole lot of medications, which are subsidized by being on disability at the time. But what I did for myself, I did for the planet too. I was just a burden. Like, what I was doing was pulling the whole planet down. Like, doctors and disability payments and like carers, and if I could just stay well, let alone thrive, I was already doing this. So when people say, oh no, I've got kids, do it for your kids. Like, don't ever be a burden. You want to feel good. You want to spend that time. And all it took was essentially doing the things I'd never really mastered, which is like, not many people can say, and I took it to a whole new level because I've gone raw vegan, is I used to look on the Sunday paper and see there was a section called like the healthy section with the beautiful, avocado toast with maybe some sauerkraut and a chai tea or whatever was on the cover. And I was like, imagine you could do that. Imagine you were so good at looking after yourself that you had that. And then you see these girls who could do Pilates and yoga. And I'm thinking they're just lucky. No, they're working their butt off at doing it. But I knew I could do it because I worked my butt off at staying alive. So now all I'm doing is just transferring that energy over into making sauerkraut and avocado toast. And I got to be the yoga girl and the Pilates girl and the matcha drinking girl and the all of that. But in fact, that didn't really become my focus anymore. My focus just was like, how much can I love myself? And every time I did something that, if someone's like, oh, well, how do you start? Is if something has a downside to it, it's self-harm. So if you have a cheeseburger and at the time you're like, I love this is the best, oh yeah, this is protein in it, but the next day you feel like shit, you're teaching your body self-harm. So it will seek out more self-harm. And you may not be consciously aware of doing it, but if you change that to being like, right, okay, I'm going to have what makes me feel good is a green juice and a veggie burger. And the next day you notice you don't feel as bad. Maybe still you had a fried burger and you still notice, but you're moving in the right direction. Is the more you choose things in life which have no ramifications of self-harm, watch your life change, because you're teaching self-love. You start bringing in people that make you feel good. You get a career that feels good. If someone doesn't align with you, you're not sad that they're left. You realize the universe taking away now things that don't serve you. So my doctor put me on Klonopin and I am coming off it. These doctors don't really understand the body becomes physically dependent. Yeah, I knew a person in one of the psych units who was on Klonopin. Most psych drugs I've heard of. Good for you coming off. I always think omega-3s are so good for the brain. Make sure you get lots of omega-3s. I choose flax oil, flaxseed or chia. They seem to really help. Opioid withdrawal, I heard, is past hell. It is past hell. It's like at 37 kilograms when you've been on it for 10 years. It's part when they rip it off you when they shouldn't have done that. But you know what's worse than past hell? Of the opioids and the Valium and the stimulant. So essentially they say meth all at once. SSRIs. SSRIs are the hands down worst drug. They helped me, I thought, but I never processed. Feeling good consistently on a antidepressant, the body wasn't made for it. The reason we seek out new environments is because we feel up and down. The dissociation from coming off that combination at 37 kilos when I had so much wrong with my body is, there's no words. As I said, is I've come off opioids from having my stomach removed and having surgeries, and it's just like, that's the worst. There's no words. No one could understand what it felt like. Thank you. It's true. We just don't know it. We think the people we see succeeding in life are the lucky ones. Well, we've all seen me, and for those who haven't, let's bring up the photo again, because if I can do it, you guys can do it too. But the choice is, and especially with someone with ADHD, you don't get a quick hit from doing natural self-love activities. The benefits come over time and they're consistent. The only reason I have hair now, I lost my hair. There's another photo of it here. Well, that hair doesn't look that good there, does it? I mean, there, it's just about all falling. That tiny was when I was just about off all the opioids and the stimulants, and then they threw me in a hospital. How I survived, I do not know. Anyway, besides that, I'd lost my hair. The reason people are like, what shampoo do you use? How do you have such good hair? Every day showing up for myself and putting the good stuff in my body, making good choices every day adds up. Your goal will be reached. Otherwise, if you think that taking something that gives you up and down effects, 3 years from now, you'll be worse off. But if 3 years from now you start, and it's not completely changing, you got to start moving in the right direction. Like you literally, all you got to do is start moving in the right direction. Life, you'll get inspired by yourself. It doesn't mean you just eat vegetarian burgers. As I always say, if you're eating a standard diet, try cutting out so much processed food first. Don't think that you're just going to, and don't think that, like being really simple is the answer straight away. Like, I'm just going to juice my way out of it. Don't do that. Learn how to look after yourself. Um, it matters. You matter. You'll reach goals. You never like. All I wanted was to be pain free and not have disease. I got pain free, no disease, running every day, Pilates every day, my dream job, connecting with beautiful souls. I'm about to fly over to America, meet my bestie over there. These are things that are unimaginable for me, but came when I started believing in myself. I don't think weed helps. Mention your addiction. Oh, I already did. I've gone through all my addictions, if that's what you're saying. Is we know 60 surgeries, 7 major organs removed. I've been on opioids, stimulants, SSRIs, Valium. I was alcoholic, vaped, drink, smoked. My liver failed from alcohol. You name it, I've done it. I never did weed, hated it. Um, Start hitting the bags. So no, that's real low vibe stuff. We're all high vibe here. We're all about it's Saturday night. We're going to put a candle on. We're going to have a hot shower. These things add up for someone with ADHD. I say ADHD, but someone who feels things, right, and needs to have dopamine is have a warm bath, put salts in it, put a candle on, put some subtle music on, make yourself like the yummiest, healthiest meal. Maybe it's not a hit from a glass of wine, but all the little self-care things add up to make you feel like you're getting like a big hug. And the next morning you get to get up and you get to have an acai bowl and go into yoga. And you don't have to pay for a class. You can just get on YouTube, take your phone down to the grass. Even if you get it wrong and you can't sit through the whole class, start doing. Another story. My auntie suffered from panic attacks when she went through menopause. She couldn't get out of the apartment. And she started to overcome it by putting her gym gear on and walking down the stairs of her apartment and then walking back up. 2 days later, putting her gym gear on, walking down the stairs of her apartment and walking back up. A week later, she puts the gym gear on. She's done this a few times now. She's walked around the outside, the perimeter. This is a woman who could not leave her house without medication and panic attacks and just a mess. And then 2 days later, gym gear on, outside, walks around the apartment. By 2 months, I think, out, she's walking to the end of the street and back. You have to start moving towards your goal to reach it. And we are all, and you can be just like her and just like me, where you start making choices which are moving you towards the outcome you want. A lot of the time when we're medicating or self-destructing is it's only right then that you might feel relief, but you're moving yourself away from what you actually want. Is you have to, and I said to her, because she used to come in and care for me, especially when mum and dad traveled. I used to say to her, when I get better, even before I leave the house, before she told me her story, I said, because I studied psychology, I know how much the environment affects us. I'm going to put my gym gear on, then take it off, and then I'll probably get back into bed because I've been so sick. And the next day I said to her, I will put my gym gear on. I'm training my brain so it's not shocked and it's not in pain, but it adapts slowly. I'm not running marathons yet, right? But I would slowly, the idea of putting on, even before you do it, I don't suggest sitting around thinking about it. You can think yourself out of it. You've got to do something that moves you towards what your goal is. So I know there's people on here who have said they're coming off their medication. You're already reaching your goal. But what can also help is as you decrease, increase something which improves your life. So your body will start to learn more so that as you let go of this, more good's coming in. Like whether it's you up your water intake each day, or now twice a week you go for 10-minute walks. Like not when you first decrease it because you might feel a bit off, but as that space comes, you will feel things more. And it can be hard to cope. And the only way to help truly long term is to replace what you've done with more things which long term are sustainable, which will take your body, mind, and soul to a higher level. And this is why when I coach people, it's never, oh, you must do the gym gear thing and walk around the apartment block. No, because and this comes back to the ADHD, where we're each so individual. What is it that you feel called to, or that you've seen in books and you've always been like, I would love to be that person who gets up and watches the sunrise? It ain't going to magically happen. You have to just, maybe it's you open your blinds. the same time every day, or not even every day at the start, 3 times a week. Start doing the steps because they all add up. And for people starting out with the mini steps, these are big deals. Like for someone like who's doing all this stuff, people might be like, oh, well, I do all this. Don't worry about them. The reason you will get to do what they do and becomes your own inspiration is because you show up for yourself every day. Twice a week, you're going 10-minute walks and you're going to get up at 7 a.m. 3 times a week and open the blinds and watch the sun pour in for hours. But you've got to do them. And I think, as I said, having the addictive brain or ADHD brain, and drugs definitely, even if you do it, it doesn't count because you're overstimulated already. You're not getting much from much else. I mean, you're high is what I mean. Okay. What is your input on the ever increasing gap between the economical and societal classes? Do you think someone in this chat could innovate an idea and birth a critical moral standpoint to solve this? So, do you want to know my honest take on that? That to me is a distraction from the fact I can't change the economical environment. I can't change the world, but I can change me. And what if I can glow enough that I walk down the street and 4 people that day are like, I wonder what that girl does. She's always so smiley and nice. Wonder why. And maybe 2 weeks from then, I'm on a live. 4 people question the way they are. They don't have to change. I believe it's such a cliche. The change starts with you. It's such a cliche, right? But working on yourself has been the only thing, in my opinion, that has actually changed the world. As in, I'm not taking from the government anymore. I'm not needing carers. I don't need surgeries. I don't need psych units. I need sunshine, sustainability here. Sunshine. I need fresh. I'm really sad that it's raining so much, but knowing me, I'll end up standing out in the rain. I've been running in the rain. Looking after myself, you have no idea the value that holds. And we spend too much time caught up in debate. Instead of debating, light a candle, have a shower, make food you can afford that's healthy. It can just be some rice and veggies and tofu, whatever it is, just simple. And learn to look after yourself, because I promise if we were all doing that around the world, we wouldn't need debates. Everything would be in balance. A lot of people I work with, we swap skill sets. So in the field that I'm in, with people do yoga, breath work, natural therapies. I do raw food. Is we swap. I think society was more meant to be like that, but that's a whole. I think we need to stop sitting around thinking things and actually start doing some self care. That's my thoughts on it. Hello, 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 hello. Uh, yeah, thanks, party boy. You've put the $1 million to your house. I started with no family support. I had disability payments. I did have a few thousand only because I had not spent my disability money. I had been in hospitals. I couldn't call a bank. I couldn't use my phone. I was living on the street because I had a phone. I don't think it was charged because it was charged in the hospital. Then I slept outside the hospital. So you can't come at me. I did grow up in a wealthy family and thought I needed more. Like I did, my family is wealthy. Everything I have here that you've seen in the lives that you've seen me share has only come after I'm 40. I had nothing. Literally, even the clothes and furniture that I had was donated. This stuff comes because I work, because what I did to save my life, I gift to others as a coach. Well, I essentially give it all away for free. But if somebody needs more support, they pay me. So this rich thing, and I feel richer actually not having, being a private schoolgirl, lived on the water, had a boat, had a car. I actually feel like I just kept thinking I needed things. Now I need another new car. That's going to fix my problem. Now I need this. I actually fixed my problem was looking after myself, which I never, and it's not people's fault. It's that it's not taught. We think it's what's taught in schools is the God be all. I could go for a salad right now. Do you know how happy that makes me? Aaron, that's like really made me happy because I am like salad making queen here. I love a good salad. I love the flavors. I love the way it makes me feel. I love all the minerals. I love that there's no down after a salad. After all the ups and downs I've been in my life, I just wanted stability, I think. She wanted to do drugs. No one told her to do them herself. 100%. 110% is every choice I made up until I healed myself is on me. I'm no victim. I've been the victim. That kept me sick. But I also don't get on people's lives writing things like that either. So maybe look at yourself, dude. But that's here nor there. I 100%, because if I take 100% responsibility for my past, guess who owns their future? Me. Me. No one can, if someone comes or goes, it's always about me. I look after me now, and that comes through veggies, fruits, walks, nature. And then the level up from that is that I get to go to things like Pilates, I get to be a coach, I get to do podcasts, I like to light candles. The simpler you keep your life, the more your life just brings stuff. Like Bill Gates is a real simple person, right? He ain't doing, and like think about Mark, I know Mark Zuckerberg spends a lot on different things, but he wears the same simple things every day. Sometimes simplicity helps the brain, guys. Me over here thinking I need 50 drugs and a bloody psych unit and more psychologists. That's why I keep everything so simple, because your life will fill up. When I first healed myself, I had hardly anything, and I loved it because my brain didn't have to overthink 2 pairs of shoes, 3 pairs of pants. Like I had nothing. And I'm like, every time someone tried to give me something, I'm like, don't give it to me. My brain now has to overthink. What is a daily routine? Good question. So my daily routine has changed over the last few years. There are parts of it I love my life. So I get up, I usually I usually have a green juice and a matcha when I first get up. I will make both of them, usually about the same time. I will then usually talk to some of my besties who are overseas on the phone. And then I will usually start to get ready for my day. Sometimes I go to Pilates, or sometimes I do a run. Okay. But if I have, because a lot of my podcasts are connecting and my clients are connecting in the US, I have to get going quickly. So I will do my exercise after clients. So if I have and I usually wake up at about 5. So I wake up quite early. So if I haven't done exercise, if I've got clients, I will just start getting ready. And usually because I'm on YouTube, I will have had my hair in rollers, so like a heatless curler. So I'll pull it out. I'll have a shower. I'll do some gua sharing, put a bit of makeup on because, as I said, I'm usually on camera, and get ready for my day. My day and morning is usually back to back with either calls or podcasts. Up until about 11:30. If I haven't exercised at 11:30, I will go for a run or take a Pilates class. Everything tends to quieten down after that for me until like either Australians after work or Europe in the afternoon night. But during that time, usually I might even get on and do a live, but I'll make myself a salad. I might snack on some fruit. I'll usually create some reels. And then, of course, there's like, well, emails essentially usually check as well when I wake up. Then sometimes I have calls again at night, but if not, I wind down pretty early, as in like the earlier the better. I haven't been getting on more lives. It's 7 p.m. here, but usually in winter I could go to get in bed at 5. So I get up at 5, go to bed at 5, and then I go to sleep and do it all again. And even on my days off, I still, not much changes. I just get a little bit more downtime. I feel like my career and what I do for work is just part of my life, and I made it that way. I love it that way. So that's kind of my day. I was supposed to buy a camera today. I said to you guys in the last live I was going to buy a camera, but I ended up just relaxing. When I get a camera, I will film. I can film what I do in a day. It's too fiddly to try and run my business off my phone and use the phone to film or what I do in a day. So I'm not on Oxy and not in an addition. I'm not addicted. Uh, it's brown sugar's worse than that. Did I miss something up further? I have a beautiful tan. Thank you. Wait till summer. I'm in the midst of winter here. Any tips personally coming off benzo withdrawals? Uh, there's two sides to this, because if you want to lessen withdrawals, you do it as slowly as possible. Okay. I, yeah, that's my greatest tip. The other thing is, if you truly, I'm not sure why you're on them, if you truly want to heal, like I never was, I know people can think here that I was on a whole lot of medications, including benzos for years, but it was so linked in with physical pain that when they went, the pain was already gone. So I don't know. The greatest thing is probably now with my experience. If you want back then's experience, it's do it slowly. But with where I am now, electrolytes. Electrolytes are the key to so many things. And I always have fresh coconut water, fresh green juices. The more you have that, you don't really have come downs like you think you know them, because life isn't like you think you know them on fresh raw foods. If you can stay enough hydrated, you will do a lot better coming off any medication. You'd be so surprised. And I'm not even saying you have to get on a raw diet. If you hydrate with some fresh juices as much as you can, you will lessen the effects for sure. See, the reason benzos, in my opinion, if you're in a drug related situation of coming off things, are the difficult ones, because if you're really suffering, and of course this didn't happen when I was thrown on a psychiatric floor and everything ripped off, but kind of the answer to coming off most drugs is benzos. So when and that isn't to say that someone's on them forever, but just say someone's really suffering coming off some sort of medication, is benzos are the answer short term, right? But when you're coming off benzos, you can't treat benzos with more benzos. And that's coming from my psychology and my being on medication experience. But if you want to actually heal at a level where you lose the addiction completely and support yourself, you want to look at raw foods are great, but essentially it'd be the hydration aspect, because once you're hydrated, the body just seems to run much better. But yes, slowly, slowly. Um, Xanax is the worst you can die. I'm surprised I didn't die getting off when they. Xanax is the same as Valium, the diazepam family, right? Diazepam, sorry, benzo family, benzodiazepam family. Um, you can come over that addiction. I don't think my addiction is in check completely only because of the way I live my life. As I've said, if I have too much dehydrated food or condiments or something, is everything comes back for me. So I've suffered from ADHD heavily. Xanax helps me feel normal. Just know trying to get off of this. Okay, so if that's the way that you're trying to get off, I would definitely start including, and even when I was at my sickest, I was eating copious amounts of fish oil. I don't recommend fish oil now. I'm vegan. I still think that flax oil or flax seeds and chia are much better, but you want to fill that brain with omega-3s. The whole body is less inflamed with omega-3s. Omega-3 fatty acids, even when I was at my sickest and I was on all this medication, I would take like 3 capsules of fish oil, 3 capsules of vitamin E oil, 3 capsules of primrose oil 3 times a day. Oils and fats, and in the raw lifestyle, people are all anti-fats, but I swear to God, if you've had addiction or psychiatric problems or chronic pain, it's brain stuff, fats, those fats, the brain is fat. The cells are fat, but if you want to come off that, I would up your omega-3 intake. And I am vegan, but in truth, when I've been taking a lot of that stuff, it doesn't matter. You just get it in. Omega-3s really help. They help ADHD. There's a few things I have here which are supposed to help with ADHD, but I'm really sensitive. I can grab them. L-theanine, which is in green tea, really helps me. I'm better with doing the food, but I know everybody's not there. So let me grab. There's some amino acids you can take, which I've read Reddit threads, and a lot of the Reddit threads say things like L-theanine. I think glutamate, looking after the gut can really help. But the thing about these, and the thing is of life, is each person's going to respond to these things in a different way. And so someone might be like, oh my God, that made me so. Tyrosine's another one. And another person can be like, this really helps me. Okay. Sorry, L-theanine is the type of caffeine. It's L-tyrosine, I think, that's in it. Let me explain this. I've probably confused many of you. Okay, so I went through all of TikTok and all the Reddit threads, and I siphoned through what supplements help ADHD the most. If you want to go drug-free. A lot of people will continually say that there's nothing like the drugs, but I think once you've been on the drugs and had some sort of stimulation, that plays into it. I feel that my life never got anywhere being, and I've been in psych units with people that say that it's a trick. So there was a stage where they were thinking of putting me back on the ADHD medication in my health back way when I was sick. And I was talking to a girl and I'm like, can you remind me about all the things? Because she was on a stimulant medication. And I'm like, do you think that you get, because she's like, now that I'm on this, I went and did this computer course, and then I was having panic attacks and I didn't get through. And I'm like, you still on? She's like, yep. And she'll go off and read. And I looked in her room, it was a complete mess. I mean, she's in a psych unit. But we got together and we was talking about, now I wasn't medicated, those two were, and we all came to the same conclusion that the most we achieved in our life was never being medicated. And I think that's like, basically, it makes you think you're doing something when you're not. Caffeine kind of does the same. You think you're doing a lot, but you're actually just kind of not. Of course, there's periods where I've read a lot on stimulant medication, like I'm able to read big chunks of information. But once you get off the medication or it wears off, you don't really tap into that stimulant brain. It's a different brain. When you get back on it, you can. So basically, and also there's different levels to it. So it's like, because you go up and there's a bit of a like across, and then it usually comes down. There are more sustained ones. But we all came to the same conclusion that if you look at our life as a whole, I think I was about 36 when I was thinking about going back on it. I did, and then I came off it again very quickly at that stage. Is that you think because you have the pleasure centers of your brain lit up, like all those dopamine receptors in all different parts of the brain, but that limbic system being really lit up, is you actually think you're more successful just because you're happier. And they say, it's not the same as an antidepressant. Well, I kind of think it does make you a bit high. So there's that aspect. I don't hear people getting on the medication and like, that's the whole thing. Usually there's people who do it and they're already successful and they become more successful. But if you're not doing well at life already, is what we all discovered is it'll make you think you're doing better. But if we actually look at our lives, we never achieved anything major on it. I feel like we have to become uncomfortable to get comfortable. Like that's why we get edgy and want to move all the time and do things, is that gets things done. If you're just having the pleasure centers of your brain lit up and you sit still and you don't have to move, you don't achieve what was probably needed to be achieved. So these things are not stimulants. These are just amino acids. Now I can read out exactly what each of them are to help you guys, because I went through all the Reddit threads and the TikTok and found the compilation of what is most successful. And one of the first things is omega-3 fatty acids. Okay, whether it's ALA, DHA, EPA, it's the ALA will change into, which essentially is meat-based or plant-based. I recommend plant-based because I'm vegan. That's first and foremost. A good diet is definitely going to help you, is another consistent one. Also, a lot of people say, including myself, and this is why I'm no good with a high sugar diet, is having constant blood sugar spikes really bothers someone with ADHD. Anything that sets you off just is not good with ADHD. You want to stay in balance. Exercise is like so key. Exercise, I swear to God, and it can just be walking, but I find like cardio, like getting that heart pumping really helps me. So we've got L-tyrosine. These are all amino acids which function and help neurotransmission in the brain. Okay, where did that go? L-tyrosine is something thought of as the over-the-counter Adderall, a stimulant medication which is approved to treat ADHD. Both L-tyrosine and Adderall can potentially increase dopamine in different ways. However, only Adderall has been proven to have the efficiency of increasing it. But that came up, that's from Very Well Mind. But basically, what I found doesn't actually say how it's working. Let me go to the medical review. It may help with attention deficit hyperactivity disorder. L-tyrosine is a form of amino acid tyrosine which can act as a mood elevator and an antidepressant. I thought this was the one that slowed the breakdown of something in the brain. It boosts the production of tyrosine, which is another form of amino acid called phenylalanine. Tyrosine is a non-essential amino acid. This means a person's body can manufacture enough. We don't need it from diet. It reduces stress, combats narcolepsy, and combats chronic fatigue. This helps. It's a precursor for dopamine and norepinephrine. So basically what the Adderall would do is increase dopamine. And so what this does is essentially it helps the body produce more dopamine and norepinephrine. These affect mood, combat symptoms of depression. So this was something that came up lots, okay? It may not work for you, it may work for you, give it a chance. Now, L-glutamine helps with the gut, but when the gut is good, the brain is much better. So the big ones I saw people say, magnesium is another one. Magnesium functions in so much neurotransmitter support in the brain. It's crazy. Magnesium, these are the big ones. Magnesium, omega-3s. I made a list somewhere. Email me if you want the list. Magnesium, omega-3s, and a lot of them said the L-tyrosine. Okay, they were like the biggies. Omega-3, yeah, magnesium and L-tyrosine. But this one I think helps the gut as well, L-glutamine. Yeah, it protects and helps the gut. But I'm going to say help with ADHD. I'm holding it up and you guys can't even see it. While some, okay, where did that go? It gives me information, then I lose it. Okay, they have found that people with ADHD have less glutamate and glutamine, which are the amino acids. So this is a precursor to those amino acids. So that is why this helps. But that is more to do with healing the gut. Attention deficit, looking for ways to help with the ADHD symptoms. The idea that amino acid supplements can help with ADHD for decades and the brain. What are amino acids? They're the building blocks. Known. So a lot of these are needed in neurotransmitter support and function, and that is why increasing them can help. But the big ones here are magnesium, omega-3s, L-tyrosine, and the other one I saw a lot of people taking is ashwagandha. None of these works for me, and it's not that the amino acids or the ashwagandha didn't work. I have, which many people with ADHD have, mast cell activation syndrome. So dried herbs and supplements, when they go in the body, cause me to have like GERD and stomach reactions and rashes and restlessness. So eventually, I'm sure as I heal more, they won't. But that might help some of you. I don't think the L-lysine, that was more when I had shingles. A lot of people say that helps with the herpes virus, which is essentially shingles. Oh, I want to send an email while I'm here. I remember I half wrote an email. I'll just push send. So yeah. Okay. Yeah, so hopefully that helps some of you. That's with, yeah, magnesium, omega-3 fatty acids, and people say L-tyrosine. What a lot of people said who have it is they have a lot of tea and things like that. Your transformation is amazing. Thank you. you can definitely get through the withdrawals. I've been through up and down withdrawals when doctors put you on things, take you off things. And as you heard, the worst experience was when I was rock bottom and things were taken off me. But it's definitely doable, but the working on yourself as you slowly come off. Ethan's kind of, and it's hard. Some people come off a little at a time, and some doctors taper you really slow. You can do it. You can definitely do it. You can definitely do it. And I always think like you have to, what's really hard with coming off addictive drugs is in the moment you completely forget that you can feel better. You literally feel like if you don't have some of the drug or the alcohol, the vape or the cigarette or the amphetamines or the opioid right now, that you're never going to feel good again. And the strength it takes to believe in yourself, and I think self-care really helps because you work towards something. Another thing that used to help me is just showers. Wet your hair in the shower. It's especially when I come out, I leave my hair wet, and it's something about all that coldness being on the brain. It can really calm you. But you can definitely do it. Oh, you're amazing, Brados. I think that's how you pronounce it. I cut out all drugs, started eating healthy, and my mental stability improved. It will improve. It's just slow. And the reason I think we stay off them is because we work our butt off at getting off them. And there's value in getting off them, but do it slow and look after yourself. What other things can help besides a warm shower? It's hard, but showers, salty food, your adrenals are going to be burnt out. You just feel better, especially with benzos. I would also say sweet foods because your brain is going to want some dopamine and be a little bit glucose deprived. You see in psych units, people and essentially live off cigarettes, caffeine, lollies, and junk food because most of them are coming off drugs and then put on new drugs and they have cravings. So warm showers, jumping in the ocean, it's hard because it is a lot to go through. Yes, salt seems to help, salty foods. And self-belief that you will get through this. I would say a raw food diet, but that's a lot to undertake. I would say the hydration is get hydrated any way you can. I don't think there's anything when it comes to benzos that it specifically helps some of these drug withdrawals without using another drug. And benzo, like, because I will be honest, I know how all drugs interact, they work. Alcohol will take away benzo side effects. Alcohol will take away most side effects, but then you've just got a new problem. But if it gets bad and you need to, I don't know how bad this is. So some people's doctors just rip them off things and they can't cope, right? And we're not talking about doing something forever, and you can start new addictions. So sometimes it is just about looking after yourself every day, having showers and having wet hair, making sure you're full because you just feel so miserable. And then a lot of people can't eat, especially with coming off benzos because you're so anxious. So I would say do it slowly. Myself did this. I'm not prescribed, sadly. Okay, that gives me some, I don't know how much access you have to them, but it may be worth, if you can't do it yourself, is telling somebody you need help and getting someone to help you taper off them. So a tapered off plan, I don't know how much you're on, is that you, at the start, you can usually decrease larger amounts of a drug because over time, and please know this is just from experience, I'm not a medical practitioner here, but just say you've been taking, I don't know, people can get into big doses because it's addictive, so you can need more and more. Like just say you've got yourself on 20 or 25 milligrams, and it could be much larger, but you can actually come down at the start to like 15, right? But then when you start getting into these lower amounts, you can only come down a few milligrams at a time. It's probably worth, if you've got access to them, getting someone to, setting up a plan with somebody and them giving you the drugs every night, because you won't have withdrawals. You will just not like that you're really coming off it, you'll start to be feeling normal, but you skip the withdrawals. That's my greatest advice if you have access to them, is get someone, give them the meds and say, at this time every day, even if I beg you can't give it to me, this time every day you deliver me 2 pills or whatever they do. That's my greatest suggestion. Also, when you go into lack or withdrawal, your body has this overaction to compensate and do something. But yeah. You know about schizophrenia. That's a real deal for many people and families. The thing you're doing now is what could help so many with mental health problems. Oh, I'm so glad. I really am so glad. I will tell you, when it came to schizophrenia, it was actually marijuana-induced schizophrenia. So when I'd been 15 years, I went through it, 15 years in a room. I'd been in a bed 25, but I had breaks of being able to get back up and work. But 15 years basically in a bed or hospital. And then, as you guys heard, I was on lower amounts of opioids and stimulants and all that, and basically literally thrown on the floor. I couldn't stay on the bed because I was in so much pain. Going to the toilet on the floor, it was absolutely horrible. I had no friends. I hadn't had a phone in a couple of years because I was so disconnected from the world. I had a phone, I just didn't use it. So I finally had some money to get a new phone. Okay, this is my first experience with the world, and I could barely do anything because I'd been so unwell. And this guy in there who was about 10 years younger than me would help me read, and he'd help me talk to me. And he was my first friend in my phone. He was the only person when I got in the lower acute unit of psych, when we could have phones, that I talked to. My only friend. And he had drug-induced schizophrenia and would talk about all these voices that he constantly heard. He smoked daily, just normal smoked, until one day these voices just started. And you hear this occurring, right? I know people that have smoked for years and they don't have this, but you don't know when it's going to come on, right? So he had this going on, and unlike me, who they wouldn't let go and kept scheduling, they wouldn't let him in. He wanted to end his life, right? And he was basically begging to stay in the unit for a couple of days, whereas me, they would not release. Anyway, we would text, and we had night leaves. He had lots of night leaves. I finally got night leave, and I'd be at home, and I never slept when I was coming off these drugs. Like literally, I had 2 periods of my life for months I never slept. I would black out like 40 minutes a night. They had me on Seroquel, all that, didn't matter. And I'd be up, like jittery. Anyway, I finally slept in my home one night and woke up in the morning to a suicide letter on my phone from my only friend. And he took his life. They found him in his garage hanging, and they rushed him to the hospital, which I was about to have a surgery in. And they didn't find him for 4 days. No one knew, so he didn't return to the psych unit, and he hadn't told his family the hospital he'd been in. Plus his family had been so busy by his bed, they hadn't called the hospital. So us in the psych unit didn't know where he was. I just had a suicide letter. So this is my first friend and I don't know where he is. I don't have anyone to talk to because he's my only friend. We did have other friends in the unit, but he was like my bestie. He was my ride or die that I'd finally met. We've been connected for, I think, about a month at this stage, maybe more. And then someone put on Facebook, this is one of those periods where I wasn't very good at writing at this time. And one of these girls put, has anyone seen, and they said his name, and then someone replied. And I didn't know how to process emotions. Like literally couldn't process what I was going through, yet process this. And then they drove me, some people in the unit had left that were friends with him and me, and I had more leave, so they drove me over to the hospital, and I saw him. His mum wouldn't let me go and said he didn't stop talking about me while he was in hospital, and that I'm like an angel in his life, and she's like, I'm so glad you're with him, and they didn't get the letter, I got the letter. Like, so I don't even know, I don't know where he is, making me feel a bit sick right now. But it was like the only person I spoke to on my phone at the time. Anyway, then I had a surgery there. So I had a surgery, then went and sat next to him. It was because it was a different hospital. All his organs got donated. But I believe I have been, maybe at not that time, in situations when I went through things where it was like I felt the universe wanted me not to be here, like that. I don't know what he went through, but I am here today because I hung on. And I think what you have to know is when you go through a bad time, a really bad time, is there may not be on that day a way that you can feel good. But if you hang on, your brain and body will find a way to recalibrate. And this is why I encourage so much to look after yourself, because at least while you're going through this crap, if you start eating right and sitting in nature a bit, although on that day you may not feel any better, you will move towards feeling better. Like in the crap, you have to be doing more good so that eventually, like the drug balance, like how I said, if you're having really bad withdrawals, have a few sips of alcohol, that ain't helping future you. It's only so that you stabilize in that moment. You can create another problem. Doing that, the main thing you have to do, no matter what you're going through, is start looking after yourself, because that will eventually get you somewhere. And it may not get you feeling good for 3 months, but underneath you're moving towards something. I am someone who had access, especially sometimes, to so many different medications. And when one wasn't working, especially I'd been in pain, but even coming down, sometimes I'd need a little bit of, I was pretty good at coming off all that stuff, but I have been in situations in life that the day was, I don't even know how I'm here. For the grace of God, I just knew that that's not what I wanted to do to my body. That's all I knew. And so it can be like that. But I think when you start having better days, those better days, you don't want to be getting yourself into addictive tendencies. They will not serve you long term. They will only numb you for a few seconds and probably cause a bigger problem. You want to be looking after yourself. So, oh, my mic. Yes, and you know what I want to say as well is the strength you learn. Some of my darkest hours have become off the back of drugs. Actually, in fact, I think my darkest hours have come off the back of drugs. Even though they were all prescribed. Even like the alcohol thing wasn't as bad. There were still dark times, but coming off some of those psych drugs were my darkest times. I am so strong now because of the lessons I learnt in those dark times. Don't ever think that you go through darkness without learning. If you numb it, you don't learn. You will, when you become and don't touch those drugs again, you will do it because you suffered so much. Sometimes the body has to suffer so much so you don't go back. I got back into college in a month and that shit. So if I was coming off any drugs and I had chosen to go into something, I would put that on a break. The value that's not, and I say this all the time, is I feel like I was taught at school that you're supposed to have a whole lot of caffeine, take some antidepressants. You got to get through that university degree. You got to get through this. You got to get through that. How I got to where I want to be in life was by finally spending time not doing that stuff and just looking after myself. Like, just my job is to look after myself. Life take care of me now. I have to every day have movement most days, have good food, which I share with you guys, get out in nature, be around good people, get good sleep. And if you start doing that day after day after day and prioritize that, life starts getting brighter. And I don't see another way. We live in a world where there's so many quick fixes, but those things lead you. But the strength that you have when you find your purpose comes from your darkest days. Like what you end up doing, you do because you filled your cup so much, you can now teach others to fill theirs. Therapy with this chick. I took Benadryl to help me sleep until it started doing better, but please understand this is hard coming off. Clopin has been crazy. That is not a bad idea. I have really bad side effects to antihistamines, although I have a high histamine type illness which comes up, but because antihistamines are not predominantly addictive, like you're not going to continue to take higher and higher amounts of antihistamines. They usually can knock you out if you need to sleep, but they don't have a relaxing effect. Like you may feel dopey, but that's only because your brain's not functioning as it should. But like, as I said, with the glass of alcohol, you are so much better at working at coming off them. And the only way I see to do that is get a friend to deliver at the same time every day, no questions asked. You just same time every day, and that's how you wean off. It's the best way. Hello. It's a good idea, but yeah, you need to sleep. So something like Benadryl is a good idea. I'm not a doctor. This is just experience in any histamine, but they can make you feel even worse. That was the problem why I stopped using that to replace things. Because when you get into risky situations with benzos is where you start having you're falling asleep and you all of a sudden your body has like electric shocks all the time. That's actually your heart rate starting to fade off and you're having like electric shocks. And so my greatest suggestion is don't stress about it. Get someone to help you come off it. This is where counseling is good, because if you go to a psychologist, go with a purpose. Don't think that you can just keep turning up 4 years, because it can make it worse. But if you go in with this purpose, you have this addiction, you want to talk about these issues about addiction, but don't, I swear from my experience, and I've studied psychology, you would literally just start programming yourself once a week to think of negative things where you could be outside walking and being around great people. So you like tuna in your salad. I'm vegan, so I don't eat tuna. So do you like, I don't know what that is. You have ADHD too. I think many of us here have the ADHD. We're all here to reframe it as our superpower. But as someone was saying before, whether you have like schizophrenia or bipolar, a lot of this also has like co-diagnosis. Hello. No, I do not smoke. You'll find that the volume's better if I hold the microphone here. Does a few benzo detox 90s, not easy but doable. Thanks for sharing, Mad Gun. Yes, it's especially at the time you never feel very good, but in the scheme of things, you can do this. Yes, I don't do any drugs. I eat raw foods. The only drugs I've had since going raw was I had some tooth surgeries, so I had to have some anesthetic to be knocked out for that. But then I had some pain relief when I came to. When I had shingles, I needed some pain relief for a couple of days, and when I broke my toe. And a couple times when I've been on aeroplanes, I get trigeminal neuralgia from where I had shingles across the eye. For the days when I come off, I've had to have a couple. But considering where I came from, the thing I like about it is they make you really constipated. So I don't want to take them. They make me miserable. If you're on a raw food diet, you go to the bathroom a lot and it makes you feel really like good that your like system works. You put something in as a raw vegan, you feel it. Like even one codeine tablet, and I'm like, I can't deal with this. I also feel dopey. When you're on a raw food diet, you feel so good that stuff just brings you down. Unfortunately, when I was when I was very sick, you take it and you think you feel better because what I was eating was not making me feel good. But in the lifestyle I have now, I seem to, anytime I have one of those things, I'm like, oh, the pain's gone, which is great. But now I feel like crap, which is a place you want to be at, right? So yeah. Oh, red strainer, red. I didn't know that. How can I get off Suboxone? I don't know what Suboxone is. I don't take any medication for ADHD. Good for you. I'm not judging the people that do. It's just I don't want people to ever think, and I've been on a lot of medications, that you can just take medications and not improve your lifestyle and diet. Sub. What do we do? I've lost it. Oh, Suboxone. I don't think that's how you spell it. Ah, I have heard this before. It's the same as methadone, right? I think I think exercise helps a lot. When you talk about like the kind of feeling and that you get from like something like opioids, I don't think you can tell the difference from when you've done a run. So I saw Travis Barker, who's married to one of the Kardashians. He said he was an addict. I don't know what he was addicted to, but he said marathon running was the only time he felt the same sort of feeling or that he had when he had all his addictions. And that's why he got into marathon running. He said it really helps. It also, they say exercise helps with trauma. So I would make sure, once again, you're eating well. And I just think it's so underrated, like eating well and getting out in nature and having low stress and sleep. And I've really been on a lot of things, but I think also when you come off anything, don't do it like shocking the system. Do it slowly. Bye, Mad Gun. Thanks for dropping by. A lot of people say this. So my ADHD brain will not get into meditation. My meditation is running. My brain calms when I run. Pilates doesn't do it. Walking doesn't do it. It has to be running for me. I don't think that's just ADHD. I think a lot of it is, but I think it's like that addictive tendency, which is that what I think. But a lot of people say they had massive addictions that went with meditation. You know what else about meditation, why I haven't done it? Because I was so controlled most of my life, I've really struggled to sit in a space where I let a tape recorder or a guru write my brain. So if I quiet my brain and I start to meditate and I have to learn how to do it, I have to learn off someone else. And it's like a book. I'm letting somebody else write my brain. So that's my thing about why I haven't got into meditation. But a lot of people say it really helps them. I'm not there yet. So anyone else tell me if they've had good experience with meditation? Oh, I like that. Brados has said skateboarding and motorbikes are my drug. No alcohol, no drugs, easy. High-fiving you. That's finding like that calling, right? That thrill that you love. I used to get so much joy when I was younger. I was sick when I was little, but I was well for about 4 years, and I had a boat. I loved wakeboarding, kneeboarding, big blow-up things. I loved kayaks. I had a tinny. I used to put my tinny up and I'd get, like, because I was a girl, I wouldn't get as much trouble as the boys. I loved speedboats. I loved all that. That was all fun. Especially like looking after the boat, and you'd have to pull it up yourself, clean it. Like, there's a whole process to it, which you would know from motorbike riding. I go to the gym for ADHD. Cardio is perfect. Yeah, I think cardio is good. So I think here I think omega-3s really work as well. And we've got that cardio works. I do think meditation works. I do think if you're addicted to something, is to start looking after yourself underneath that. And if you want to come off it, do it slowly. Thanks, party boy. I don't know what was said, but you work hard at getting rid of a lot of it. Everyone has that. I don't know what was said. I knew you were trolling. I'm actually queer. I didn't know that. Everyone, if you own who you are, I think that's the hardest thing to do in the world, no matter who you are. But yeah, I didn't know what he was doing. Crikey, mate. Adderall ain't healthy. Ain't that the truth? It's not healthy. I think we need to get into more self-care. I am Australian. What were your symptoms or signs? If we're talking about ADHD, because I have many symptoms, I had many problems going on in my body, but the biggest sign was the ability to never sit still from a young age. That I literally, actually the best times I did at school before I got sick were when I was most active in sport. So I played state water polo, basketball, rep netball, swimming, dancing. I was doing exercise morning at night. And then when I would sit tests and exams, I did really well. And then when I got sick and I couldn't do things like that anymore, my ADHD really took over. So there's something to being like physically engaged in a lot of exercise, which really helps. But the biggest signs of the ADHD were that I never concentrated from a young age. I never slept. I was always like very, not just dramatic, like screaming. When everything didn't go my way, I would storm off out of restaurants and shops and just scream from a young age. Mood disorders, but the lack of concentration was massive. But then when I came off all that stuff, I have only just got my concentration back from the omega-3s. Having the high omega-3s, I'm able to like literally, I forgot that you can actually like not be here on this earth. You like go into a movie and all of a sudden you're like, where did that go? I didn't have that after the medications. There's something that's not great about them. Oh, you need to stop doing that. Every time I take an LSD or speed, I end up in a mental hospital. Funny enough, every psych visit of mine, off topic here, came off the back of them taking SSRIs off me. I've never ended up in a psych unit without them stop, because you dissociate. I mean, I think I'd had enough trauma, but you can't, and on the back of the packet of the box, it says you can't, a lot of people can't tell if they're asleep or awake. What? So benzos and opioids are very, very, very painful to come off. But there's a difference than not knowing who you are, or if you're awake, or if you're asleep, or if this is a dream and you're acting out a dream. That is where whack-a-mole starts. That's why it's, if you're coming off it, anyone I work with that comes off that stuff, especially the end, you titrate. You do it so slowly, because you can literally just throw yourself into psychosis. But you need to stop taking LSD and the speed. You don't want to be in a mental hospital. They're like the world's worst place. Even people in psych hospitals that have been in jail tell me that jail is better than psych units. It's like nuts, because all the people who are trying to help you are all traumatized, because they've been around traumatized people for 12 hours, 4 times a week. You know, like, it's crazy. It seems, oh, you think that's negligence on psych wards' parts? Do you want to know how psych wards run? So this is Australia. I'm sure they're worse in other places. So you're going into a unit where every other person in an acute unit is messed up. So you're not around sunshine and rainbows and love and hugs, and you can get through this in a beautiful courtyard, or maybe even like a beach or a park. You're in like a jail type situation, and every nurse is on guard, because every third person in the psych unit is either about to attempt to do something to themselves, or they lash out. So as much as we put down that it's negligent for them, no one has ever taken into consideration how freaking traumatized you'd be after just a small period. Those, and it's a lot of women, are tough, okay, but they're scary. Then you've got security guards. Then if something goes wrong, you've got police running in and out. Plus they shine light in your eyes every hour on the hour in there to check you haven't done anything to yourself, right? So you're not sleeping as it is, and they're shining lights in your face. Who was in that psych unit when I went back 3 years later was about 50 to 60% the same people. They call it the revolving door. You leave, you only see, so these psychiatrist doctors, you see for 15 minutes. They see like, there's like different units. There's acute, there's subacute, and then there's rehab. That's in Australia. There's private units, completely different. Private psychiatric hospitals are not the same as public, not even a little bit. These doctors come in, maybe there's 2 on for a day. They have to see like 50 patients every day. They check on you, maybe like every second day. So they can only see for 15 minutes. Every time I saw the doctor, she gave me a new diagnosis. A different doctor, sometimes the same doctor, a different diagnosis. So you're already confused. You've got light shining in your eyes. Everyone around you is either about to explode or yell. Plus, they're usually, if you go on leave, everyone is smoking. They're still doing drugs. The amount of people that get rushed out of there up to ICU on grievous bodily harm, and they bring in, and then they share drink bottles of vodka. It's just... And this is my first experience with life, like at 36. So I'd had organs removed many times, many surgeries, walk in the park. My experience with life in this place, and remember, this is when I'm up. When I first went in there, I didn't leave a room, I went to the bathroom on the floor because I couldn't get up. I was having withdrawals from benzos, from opioids, from stimulants, from SSRIs. They took my hormone replacement off me. I had no female hormones. They shouldn't have done that. That was the only thing I asked for in there. I said, can you please? I was begging for it. Eventually, the doctors called and said, take everything off her, but you cannot do that to the woman. Anyway, this is before I get up. Then you get up and you're in Looneyville. Like, you're trying to grasp reality. And so this is one of my best friends. Her son was in there. We connected, and I'm good friends with her now. Oh, she's one of my best friends. And she would bring in every day balls and balloons and like food, because I wouldn't talk to my family at that time either. It is nuts. So as for it's negligent, oh my God, the amount of reporting that goes on in there for people who have families. Most people in there have been through things there's no words to describe. It's like back to back house fires, losing children, then the next day their teeth are falling out. It does not stop. It's like a freaking nightmare in there. A private unit is not even, it's like kind of like a sub-holiday where they speak to you, they will work through what medication works. They're just group drugging people in there. Everyone's on the same meds in those places. If you don't take it, or if you're not really conscious, they'll just inject it. They'll test you to make sure you're getting good levels. If there's not enough, they'll then make sure that they're injecting more. It's crazy. As for, who basically the same people are in those psych units. So if I went down there now, the same people would be in there. And they don't let many people in. So the amount of people who think that they're going to end their life and go to a hospital for help never end up in those units, never get the help. The people are like, batshit, not here, beyond. Don't wear shoes, it's like, it's crazy. But the worst part is you need to be around, and the food in there is not. You're basically drugged, bad food, and locked up and not allowed out for more than when you get your rights to leave the building for 15 minutes twice a day. And then you get home leave after like a month. But it's like nuts. What drugs were you talking about? Oh, so I was on pain medication, and all this was prescribed. Stimulants, hormone replacement, what else have I missed here? And then later on, I got into drinking, vaping, smoking. I feel like I've done every family of drugs. Exactly what benzos do. You may feel good, but then your body gets used to them, and you think you need more. Well, that's what happens to all addictive drugs, is because the receptor site gets used to the amount that you're taking, and your body then also stops making it naturally. So we have naturally occurring feel-good, I can't remember exactly, like the dopamine and serotonin stops being made basically by your body because you're taking a drug which gives it to you. Especially those opioid type ones. I can't think of what it's called right now. Okay, yeah, endorphins. And that's why running helps. So, sorry, endorphins essentially get stopped being made because they're being made by opioids. That's opioids. But that's basically what addictive drugs do, is they're mimicking something the brain should be doing. Here, GABA. So benzodiazepine work by increasing the amount of neurotransmitter called GABA. And so basically your body just stops making it itself because it pre-predicts you're about to take some GABA and endorphin. So it's like, I'm not going to make it today. So when you lower the amount in your system, especially dramatically, is you are in a deficit. So I don't do drugs in the first place. Just understand life's tough and we have to carry on. Yeah, we all go through different things. I mean, essentially, none of these addictions, besides the smoking, vaping, and the 3 months of drinking alcohol, everything else was prescribed in my case. But I take full responsibility. So, yes, thanks, party boy. No, it wasn't. It was all prescribed. And as soon as I had the surgery, I started to come off. So as soon as they finally fixed it, which took, when I got on those massive amounts, it was about 4 years. Of course, when I had surgeries, I'd go on medication and come off, but I was on it about 4 years. As soon as I had the surgeries, it took another 5 years to come off, and then the little bits left, like the fentanyl patch and the Oxycontin and the Breakthrough and the SSRI, which was prescribed for pain, and the stimulant medication, which was for ADHD, they just took it all off. And I was like 37 kilograms. It was like a full mess. But do know that as soon as they fixed the problem, I had been coming off all this stuff just like the doctor prescribed. Like, now you've lowered, and I'm like, can I come off more? It's making me sick. Then I would. And I had already been so sick that coming off this stuff made me really sick. Sometimes I'm in too much depression. What can I do? So first off, I always recommend, and I don't know whether I brought this up, is you should read the book Nutrient Power. So this doctor, psychiatrist, has discovered that every depression, schizophrenia, ADHD is all a nutrient deficiency in the brain. He says it cannot be fixed simply by even seeing a deficiency in the body. To find out the deficiency, you need to have a urine test that matches a blood test that matches a tissue test. And then the correct concoction has to be injected in an intense amount. And if you give the wrong disease, psychiatric disease, the wrong cocktail, you can actually increase the effect. Like if you give the cure to someone with schizophrenia, it'll actually increase schizophrenia. But what I think is powerful about this book is that when you get on a raw food diet, essentially all you're having is nutrients and hydration. And I believe it has the power to actually reverse things. Like I had FND, I had suicidal thoughts, I had PTSD, I had severe anxiety, I had addiction problems. They were the first to go. Like my brain literally just self-corrected with a whole lot of nutrients and hydration very quickly. If you can't do that and you want to heal, work on yourself. Get yourself having foods that make you feel better. So even if you are on antidepressants, is underneath that, be looking after yourself. And a lot of people say, oh, but the drug makes me eat. You will find any excuse. Even if they take the drug away, now you're eating because the drug isn't numbing you. You have to find a way. It's not easy. It's not easy to come off medications, and it's not easy to look after yourself when you haven't known how. But you have to start. Do you eat raw meat? No. I just eat raw plant foods. Oh, you're on a raw diet. I'm a raw vegan though. Do you like Freely the banana girl? Yes, I just met up with her in Queensland. I know we eat slightly different. She's more carbohydrates. I'm more like everything raw. But I love her. She's amazing. Do you take anything for nervousness with dentistry? I'm very nervous at the dentist office. Interesting you asked that. The only times I suffer with pain are after a dentist, and I think having so much fruit made my teeth more sensitive. It's a hard one because I have left dentists and needed, not that I took Valium or anything, I've been quite distressed. When I get distressed, I need to go to bed. My whole nervous system gets shaken up. So maybe take a day off afterwards, but I've actually contemplated, that's the only time, contemplated taking like a small amount of, we're talking about getting off this stuff, of a muscle relaxant before going. But I just always end up in pain. But I do have, because I had the shingles through the eye, I have this trigeminal nerve that flares up. It's like the first thing that flares up. So for that, I haven't found anything natural. I still get very distressed with the dentist. I haven't used anything yet, but I have ended up, but please know I've had dental surgery recently. So a lot of them, they've done work on a tooth. Like I've gone in there and it's not just a clean, they've done work on a tooth. So I have needed a little bit of pain relief. And this is the same period. Then the next week I've gone in and needed actual surgery on the teeth. But as for what helps, my mum is so bad with the dentist. I picked her up on Friday. She gets knocked out once a year or something, and they have to clean her teeth and do anything because she can't stop gagging. She also is very anxiety, but they can't put anything because she cannot stop gagging the whole time, which is an anxiety thing. Teeth are not good. I'm so sorry you go through that. I don't know. I know some people have different things that can help with relaxing. Like my lifestyle keeps me generally relaxed and well, but something like drills and having so many problems with my teeth is just, it's not good. I get anxiety in doctor's surgeries, but because of what I've been through, but then I kind of get on my high horse and I'm like, well, you can't really say much to me because look what happened when I saw you. All we did is have medication and surgeries and look at me now. But dentists for me are, they're a tough one. Please write below if you have any tips. I am in Australia. Eating raw made me feel the best. It does. It makes you feel the best. To help you with heroin and opioid. Frick, raw food helps with everything. You can go back to your original diet, but if you can get on a raw food diet, I swear to God, a raw plant-based diet, you just feel amazing every day. You don't think about drugs or you don't think about alcohol. I've had a bit of it come up recently. I've shared addictive tendencies, but that's because I've healed so much. A lot of my trauma, a lot of my past, with that, it's great. I remember who I was. But with that, a lot of the trauma, she's not on anything, just tips. Yeah, I don't, when it comes to anxiety, I think for generalized like anxiety, keep away from caffeine. You have no idea how much caffeine will increase your anxiety. Exercise, breathe, look after yourself, don't take on too much, get good sleep. All things that people don't really want to hear because they want, like, you're anxious, you want it to stop. But even if you're wanting it to stop, I spoke on what you can do about the depression. Yeah, I spoke about up the top about the about you just going to have to, when it comes to depression, is it's about looking after yourself every day. Some of these things people say helps, especially omega-3s. In fact, one of my cousins suffered extremely with anxiety and depression. This is before I even got on my health journey. And she wouldn't leave a room or anything. And the only thing that helps her is taking a tablespoon of flaxseed oil every day to this day. She had PMS problems, all sorts of things. So omega-3s really help. Good sleep helps. Exercise helps. Baths help. Being around good people helps. Knowing your worth, it helps. Trapstar, there you go. Is weed help with ADHD? So there's a difference between stopping symptoms and actually helping. So people say like benzos and weed and stimulants help, but all they do is stop an effect of the ADHD, and then long term they make it worse. It's like caffeine. You take the coffee and you'll focus for a moment, but when it wears off, you're worse off than before you ever even started it. And think about that tenfold. So people take it because in the moment they have less response in their body. But long term, your nerves are fried. Your body stops making things. Like, it's not good. So I would say no. Plus you get, like I just told, you probably missed it, is there's schizophrenia that's been induced by marijuana. It's so common, especially in young men. Yes, see, there's someone takes medication, and that I don't mind if people take medication. It's just you still have to do other things. And cardio helps my mind overall. I think cardio is really good. I have to wear my body out. I'm not near how I was with my mind, done a lot of it. I put myself down. I just had to be aware when it ceased. I think also by looking after yourself, you don't have such negative thoughts around yourself. You feel better every day. You look better every day. You have a better mindset because you are caring for yourself. Like, there's just so much value in caring. I call it champion syndrome. I love that. I love that. I think it should be called champion syndrome. We have the same eye color. Yay! I feel like my eyes are a little grey at the moment with the grey weather. Hello. Hello. It is about health. It's about, okay, that's a good topic, nicotine. This comes up a lot lately. So people have been finding success with microdosing with nicotine. So when it comes to, and I'm not saying this is right or wrong, but this isn't smoking, but people who have had chronic Lyme's, long haul COVID, chronic fatigue have found getting a nicotine patch and cutting it, I think, into like 4 or 6 and putting a tiny bit on their wrist during the day has stimulated the body so they don't feel foggy, cloudy, and not good. It's more well known in America, but if you're in a bad spot with chronic fatigue, but you've got to be working underneath on your health and your life. People have said that these small amounts of nicotine helped. I don't think any stimulants really help with ADHD long term, because all it did to me is start a new functioning of me. As I was saying, is it's like my body needed to force me to do things, and because it kept me still, I wasn't doing those things. I didn't make the moves that I need. Plus, I don't like the crash. But you could try it if that's something you want to try. But it's not the full answer. No stimulant is the full answer. I live in Sydney. I had to think about that then. Okay, Serenity. Yeah. So I feel like we've talked about a lot. I feel like we've. Oh. Yeah. So thanks, guys. This was fun. I feel like we went over a lot with like ADHD and addiction. What's nice is everybody, I think why life is the way it is everybody is meant to do things in a different way. It's how life is. So you've got some people who have learnt that this works for them and that works for them, and they've gone through different things, and we were meant to do that. So don't think that because you're going through a harder time right now that you are broken and you weren't meant to go through it. My darkest times make me shine now. But in my dark times, I'm glad I found a way to look after myself. So thanks, party boys, so much. Um, Siphoning people out. And have a good night, good weekend, and I'll see you all soon. Bye, guys.